What it do, what it do, how y'all feeling? Welcome to AshnielzRadio. I am your host, Ashniel. That is I. So, we talking to y'all. Yes. Well, we did it. The Trump administration has attacked Iran, you guys. This is breaking news. It's all coming to us live right now. I just ended my stream, so I had to get back on, y'all. I had to get back on, and we are all in agreement that this was probably the worst idea.
Came to be at this moment in terms of the situation with Israel and Iran. Talk about that a little bit, Courtney, and how we got involved at this point.
Well, we'll go back to 1979 with the Islamic Revolution. The U.S. had been a great supporter of the Shah, and the Shah was deposed. And what took the Shah's place was an Islamist organization group that believes that the 12th Imam was supposed to come back to the world, and for that Imam, that saint, to be received well, that Iran needs to be in the hands of fundamentalists, people that were pious but believed in all sorts of culture that many find extremist. So there were crackdowns, and women had to wear hijab, and there was all sorts of ways that people could not have any human rights in Iran. Also, Iran saw Israel as an enemy and the U.S. as an enemy, especially with the U.S. getting involved in places like Beirut during the Lebanese Civil War. There was the U.S. Marines barracks bombings, there was the U.S. embassy bombings, and the annex bombings. Iran had basically stood up proxy militias trained in the Bekaa Valley of Lebanon to base themselves in southern Lebanon and fight Israel, and that would be Hezbollah. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, after what's been happening in Gaza, last October, he ran roughshod over Lebanon and pretty much diluted and got rid of and decapitated the leadership of Hassan Nasrallah. He died in an airstrike, which pretty much took all the power away from Hezbollah, so that doesn't menace Israel. Prime Minister Netanyahu intends on not really having a ceasefire Hamas until he can say that every Hamas member is dead. And while there are question marks about that, he has taken Hamas and it basically neutralized Hamas. So these were issues that were kept up in America in the 80s, and Iran bombing in Buenos Aires, and Israeli tourists in Bulgaria, and regional wars popping up every now and then. But it's never really happened between the two foes, the two arch enemies, which are Israel and Iran, but then also the U.S. and Iran. And that comes from history pre-1979, the mullahs taking over and saying that the U.S. is the great Satan, and then the U.S. getting involved and Iran striking back with terrorist attacks. So there is history here. But there also had been a nuclear deal that President Trump took us out of, tried to get one back, clearly wanted the peace and the deal, and that's not how this has gone.
Yeah, he took us out the
bombed Iran
Iranian nuclear
several days before what was supposed to be the sixth round of talks between the U.S. and Iran. Instead, Israel and Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and his government acted unilaterally and launched airstrikes all over Iran in different places, including some of their nuclear power plants they could degrade from above ground, and also against oil refineries, gas depots, straight into Iran, into Tehran, which is densely populated. This was not something that President Trump had signed on to, and now he's reacting. He's gone a step further with this U.S. involvement, for the first time being offensive, not defensive, in this since Israel bombed nearly a week and a half ago.
This is not what I voted for.
In the president's Truth Social message, was there any indication as to what made him decide that the U.S. would do this today of all days?
So 2 minutes ago.
And I say that a little bit
2 minutes ago.
Because it came out of...
Hold on, look at this. Y'all see this?
It came out of nowhere. Like I said,
the Daily Iran military says Fordo
by knowing that they were no
has
longer
been completely emptied and evacuated for several months now.
That they could be used but there was no expectation and no heads up that they would be used today. And no post information about why President Trump did it today, rather than any other.
So what are plans for retaliation? Because we got work on Monday. Real shit.
Saturday, but there are no significant dates or anything that could be mentioned right off the top of my head.
Somebody asked Grout.
Right, especially considering that he gave Iran a new deadline, saying that he would decide within the next 2 weeks.
You guys, this is not good. What is like bombing nuclear facilities? Will there be any radioactive contamination? Would there be any bad radiation for human health? Of course there will be. Of course there will be. Bombing nuclear facilities like Fordo could release radioactive materials, but risk depends on contents. Come on, man. Stop with it. If emptied, as some claim, contamination may be minimal. Right. Okay, Elon. That's grok for you. This is not good. So the Iranian military two minutes ago said that Fordo was emptied for months ago. So what this means, if true, because we don't fucking know, everybody could be lying in this. If they struck Iran without doing what they were aiming to do, Iran has the right to defend itself. If they didn't damage their nuclear facility, then damn. What can happen, you guys? What can possibly happen? Hold on. We're going to check the IDF in a second, too. Hold on.
Yeah, that there was danger from chemicals inside Natanz, but not outside. And that Isfahan was fine, and that Fordo really hadn't been touched. Now, if Fordo is completely gone, we have to start thinking about radioactivity levels as well. And so the top nuclear scientists that I know says
so
this
the
is
IDF
just
is not
too
claiming
early
nothing.
to tell.
Too early to tell. Okay, so what do we know about the conditions of these sites right now, Courtney?
We know that they're nuclear plants, and we know that the U.S. president decided to bomb them. We know that he's speaking at 10 p.m. tonight Eastern time, that he will hopefully give more information that he has on that breaking news that he put out on Truth Social. He says Fordow is gone. There were B-2 bombers that had been moved to Guam. If the U.S. used a B-2 bomber with a 30,000-pound bomb, which only the U.S. has, which Israel does not, we're going to need to hear that from the president.
Crazy.
He probably is preparing his remarks, but President Trump does what President Trump needs remarks to at the time. So I would advise monitoring his Truth Social and waiting for his remarks to this nation.
Which will come at 10 p.m. Eastern time, which is just about an hour and 15 minutes from now. We will be hearing from the president to see what made him make this decision. Very shocking to the world. BBC was on discussing this. The entire world is discussing this as to why the president made this decision after saying that he would be giving Iran 2 weeks.
2 weeks.
To do what it needed to do. And let's talk about that a little bit. What did he want Iran to do? What was this deadline? What did he expect Iran to do within these 2 weeks that he said that he would be giving them?
He didn't really say any expectation. I mean, I think he was expecting diplomacy, and he wanted Iran to talk to him. He wants the deal, he wants to be the deal maker. I mean, obviously, Bernie Sanders is announcing Trump's, quote, illegal attack on Iran. But,
right. It is illegal.
The president has not been into making wars. He's been into making peace. But now these GBU-57 bunker buster bombs were dropped on Iran's underground nuclear facility, reportedly in Fordo. And the president's going to have to tell us more about that. The Speaker of the House, Mike Johnson, was reportedly informed in advance about this. It remains unclear whether the full Gang of Eight were also informed on time. That's the Speaker of the House Minority Leader, and the Senate Majority Leader, and the Senate Minority Leader, as well as, the Vice Chair of the Senate Intelligence Committee, among others. So we're going to have to wait. Carolyn Leavitt, the White House press secretary, is just saying tune in at 10 p.m. But President Trump called it successful. He hit 4 donut towns in Esfahan.
That's crazy, you guys.
And then he said, now is the time for peace.
Right. Now is the time for peace. Think about that. Now is the time for peace.
He did say, I dropped the bombs and now's the time for peace. So that's also an interesting comment to look at.
Yeah, and once again, we're seeing what he did announce on Truth Social. We have that up. He did say that in caps, in all caps, now is the time for peace. And it is quite interesting after the bombs have hit those three sites in Iran. How do we think Iran will react to this? What do we think they will do, given the history between the U.S. and Iran?
Well, some experts and Iranians have told me that they think the Iranian regime is at its weakest since 1979.
Wow. Some experts. I bet you these experts were a part of...
We're going to basically have to wait and see.
The Iraq War.
And then we'll have to get back to this, but it's not really unclear why this decision came now.
Wow.
Courtney Keeley, our Middle East reporter, we thank you so much for all of those details. And just to wrap up, we want to take you to we want to toss back to the BBC for more coverage on this breaking news.
Able to destroy.
This is not good.
That is so important because it will help them, the U.S. and Israel, come to the calculation
not good, you
of
guys.
How much damage they really did. In other words, how far they set back Iran's nuclear program. Did they really, we'll see, destroy everything? Is it set back for years, months? We don't really know at this point, and we'll have to see how much the public is really told. But this is going to be the key question tonight. How much was really destroyed, and how much is Iran's program?
So, Barbara, I'm just going to pause you for a second, if I may, because we do now have our first reaction from Iran. The deputy political director of Iran's state broadcaster, Hassan Abedini, has appeared live on Iranian state television a few moments ago. He says Iran evacuated the 3 nuclear sites that have been mentioned in that Truth Social post from President Trump a while ago. He also says that even if what President Trump says was true, Iran, I quote, didn't suffer a major blow because the materials had already been taken out. Barbara, I'll bring you back in. That's first reaction there from Iranian state TV. It kind of plays into what you were saying, which is these posts have to be taken with some skepticism until they're actually confirmed.
Well, I think skepticism on all sides. We don't know what the Iranians are really talking about. If they had moved the material, it would be fair to assume, at least, that Israeli intelligence would have seen that in some fashion because they've been keeping eyes over Iran. Again, satellites, reconnaissance flights, radars.
That would show that,
possibly covertly on the ground. They've been keeping eyes on Iran for some time in the run-up.
If it's true that they move their shit, Israel's surveillance team is not that good. So and if that's the case, then we shouldn't be spending $3 billion a year on them. Sorry.
Had to know the exact formation, if you will, of the rock, of the geology, the dirt, how deeply buried it was. What was the exact GPS precision point that they wanted to strike at the site to do the maximum damage? If the Iranians had moved material out, it's difficult to see how Israel might not have known that. Now, They may well have, and that will be a problem.
Israel would have seen it.
They might have been doing things at multiple sites that intelligence services were not fully aware of. This has been going on for some time in Iran, where they have dispersed their program to various sites. So again, it's really a question of what now? One thing to drop a bomb, quite another thing to figure out what it all means and where you go from here. Will there have to be additional U.S. strikes? That may be a key question.
Of course there's going to have to be. What you think this is about to be one and done?
Sharing your thoughts and insight. I'm going to ask you one more question on this.
Sure.
The likely political reaction here in Washington, D.C. across party lines?
Well, I think the one fundamental that underlies all of this in Washington tonight is no one really wants to see another war, U.S.-involved war.
They're going to say that until they're blue in the face. And I think that's them faking diplomacy. Oh, we don't want this. We don't want this, as they bombing people. We don't want this. Boom. Take that. We really,
listen. Here's the problem.
We don't
want
this.
It's that old saying, you break it, you bought it. So if
7 hours ago, 8 hours ago. So yeah, they haven't said anything yet. IDF hasn't said anything yet.
If there is Iranian retaliation against U.S. interests, that is the big concern.
That's the concern.
Against U.S. bases, U.S. troops in the region, U.S. shipping, U.S. assets, or even allied assets. If the Iranians were to retaliate in some fashion, and it becomes a problem in terms of what does the Trump administration do next, easy to get into a combat situation, which they did tonight. Very difficult to get out of it because any top commander will tell you the enemy gets a vote.
Okay, Barbara Starr, experienced broadcaster on these matters. Thank you very much for joining us here on BBC News. Well, let's go live now to Israel and speak to my colleague Mark.
Hold on, let's see what Fox got to say, because we know Fox got their own spin. This is breaking right now, you guys.
Hal, we are awaiting President Trump's remarks. Let's just reset for everybody who may just be tuning in. The latest here is that the United States has struck Iran. 3 different sites have been struck. We have been talking all week about the Fordo site. That is one of the sites that ended up being struck by the U.S. There was no immediate acknowledgement from Iran of any strikes being carried out, just on the record. No immediate acknowledgement from them. I'm going to be following closely to see if we hear anything from Iranian state media or perhaps from the Supreme Leader himself on social media.
They didn't say that they hit.
The decision to directly involve the U.S. in the war
I think that's an indication that
after more than a week of strikes by Israel on Iran.
Speculate.
Moved to systematically eradicate the country's air defenses and offensive missile capabilities, also damaging its nuclear enrichment facilities at the same time. The U.S. and Israeli officials that we've heard from have said that American stealth bombers and the 30,000-pound bunker buster bomb alone can carry the best chance of destroying the heavily forted site of Fordo in Iran, and very possible that's what was used today.
So when is he talking? In like an hour?
We are going to continue tracking this for the rest of the night. We are going to be in extended coverage.
Yeah, we ain't going nowhere. Extended coverage. We ain't going nowhere.
We won't know exactly more detail on that until it comes from the president's posts or the president's statements. But 2 days after he gave 2-week window for diplomacy, he has gone in.
2 days.
It changes the dynamic of this war entirely.
2 days, you guys.
It makes it completely unpredictable. Indeed. We now don't know what the reaction will be from Iran. We don't know what their military reaction will be. And so we are in very, very uncharted territory now.
Mark, I'm just going to jump in because we're seeing on one of the agencies that an Iranian official cited by the Tasnim news agency has confirmed that part of the Fordo nuclear site was attacked by, I quote, enemy airstrikes. We've heard that these attacks were the US acting in coordination with Israel. Just tell us more about that from an Israeli perspective, given that's where you are.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just trying to see actually whether there has been any kind of word yet from the Israeli government, and I'm just going to ask my team here to keep an eye on that and to feed me any lines that are coming in. I mean, the Israelis had been pushing for this for a very long time.
Very long time.
You know, they had been. There have been statements in the last couple of days from various Israeli officials saying, you know, they believe that Trump will be on the right side of history. They believe that Trump would be listening and sending in the military at the right time. Of course, you know, in the United States, there's not the same kind of cross-party political fervor for this. Here in Israel, polls show that the majority of Israelis want this war and want the destruction of the Iranian nuclear site. About 70% of Israelis were backing this war against Iran.
Say it. Say it
US,
loud.
Of course, you've got the splits in the MAGA movement.
Say it
I'm
loud.
just going to jump in because you probably haven't seen this yourself, but I'm seeing that Yoav Gallant, Israel's former defense minister, has said the world is now a safer place. He said it is a bold decision for the US, for Israel, and for humanity. So starting to get some reaction, Mark.
The world is now a safer place.
Yes, Yoav Gallant, you know, kicked out of the government here as defense minister on difficult terms with Benjamin Netanyahu, but very much portraying that kind of united political support that I was mentioning here. You know, it is the Iran war has, you know, crossed the political lines here. So Yoav Gallant, it appears, is the first.
Look at all the arrogance. America stand with Trump. Look at this, Charlie Kirk. America stands with Trump.
From the foreign minister or the current defense minister.
This is crazy.
We've got
all right, 57 minutes to go. The Iranian military, all American bases in every country will be burned.
Determined that at 3:45 a.m. local time,
no, that's not the real
10
one.
minutes ago,
that's a fake
immediate changes will be made to the home front command instructions. That's basically the national security advice which is given to Israelis.
I got to be careful with those. So Megyn Kelly, God bless the United States of America and her courageous men and women in uniform who risk their lives to do the impossible. We pray for them now and for our commander-in-chief.
In the last hour,
think about that.
Increases the risk and the vulnerability to Israelis. So the instructions include a prohibition on activities.
I thought they could do it by themselves. It's crazy, ain't it? Think about that.
So we're beginning to get a sense of how the strikes there may be impacting daily life here.
Okay, Mark Lowen, thank you very much for those updates from Israel. We'll be back with Mark throughout our coverage.
Yeah, Myra Gaines said he's going to get banned for this video. Well, the truth is more important.
It's not
a coincidence we pulled out of the 2015 Iran nuclear deal in 2018 thanks to Trump and Pompeo. Pompeo went and labeled the IRGC as FTO in 2018, imposing crippling sanctions. Yep, that's true.
Sending his message clearly, and I think he's trying to intonate what the regime has been doing, and there's no way yet to verify that.
26 minutes ago.
Or bragging.
You know who's not anti-war? Someone who starts a war. Fuck Trump.
That was enriched,
Said,
including to
Trump.
high levels
Clear as
at
day.
a facility like Fordo. So on the one side, this is a public relations message to the Iranians saying, yes,
53 minutes ago. Can someone please conduct a wellness check on Tucker Carlson, Dave Smith, Candace Owens,
there is no way to
and
verify
the entire
it probably will take at
maga
minimum up to 24 hours
that
for a full, complete battle
make
damage
America
assessment from the
hate
United States
again?
of
I don't know.
America.
I don't know.
If this is
I don't know
true,
what the maga.
that
That's
means
a new
that there
one.
is loose, unaccounted
Maybe
for
somebody
fissile
can
material
break
in the
it down
Islamic
for us.
Republic
Let's
of
see,
Iran.
maga.
And the risk of that
What the maga
is
mean?
what the regime will dangle to avoid a counter-proliferation strike from becoming a counter-regime strike.
Okay, just in the next
crazy.
minute or so,
I gotta read that out.
just
I
want
wanna read
to
that out loud.
mention this as well, that the security deputy governor of
Somebody said, I won't die for
has
Israel.
confirmed
Right.
that there were several explosions heard in Natanz and in Isfahan. He said, we saw attacks near the nuclear sites, and so essentially now, Benham, all three strike sites mentioned by the president, now confirmed by Iranian officials. I wonder if in just 30 seconds you could give me your thoughts on that.
This is crazy.
Well, this is the regime trying to put, you can say, meat on the bone behind President Trump's tweets and comments about strikes on these facilities. But because they come amid a wider war, because they come amid a whole host of comments made by regime officials, this is them trying to update the public, but also water it down.
Whoever she is. Hold on, y'all.
Breaking news out of the Middle East. President Trump announced that the U.S. has attacked 3 nuclear sites in Iran. In a post on Truth Social, he called the attack successful and says the planes are now outside of Iranian airspace. Mr. Trump went on to write, quote, "Now is the time for peace." He also says he will address the United States from the White House at 10 p.m. Eastern time. This is the Truth Social message that he put out. Right now, we do have CBS News senior White House correspondent Weijia Zhang joining us right now with the very latest. Weijia.
Carissa, we are waiting for the president to speak in just about 1 hour, and certainly there are so many questions about how this was carried out and about the plans that led up to it. Because, of course, as we have been reporting, it was just on Thursday that he declared
a self-imposed
2-week deadline for Iran to really have another chance, a final chance at diplomacy and trying to give them an off-ramp.
Let's see what NBC saying.
There's DIY.
Everybody got their own take on it, so let's see what NBC has to say.
Saying that there is an expectation that the U.S. embassy in Baghdad will be attacked. What's interesting, and obviously we're only getting this from sources, that it is virtually empty. We're told that there is nobody there anymore, and there is an expectation that it could be attacked quite shortly, actually. And then a number of military bases in the region could be attacked. Now, there are 4 in Erbil, which is where I am. There's one actually just a few miles behind me. That one of our sources were telling us is a very dangerous place to be this morning. And I think that that has been something that people have been expecting here for some time. Now, you've got to remember with Iraq, what's really interesting about this country is that it has to play off its relationships with the United States, which is incredibly important. There's 2,500, maybe more American troops that are here. And it has relations, obviously, with the United States, with all this incredible history over the last 20 years or so. And yet it has a government that leans towards Iran, and it has a huge number of very powerful Shia militia groups here who will be absolutely incensed by everything that's happened in the last week or two, and have been saying and have been pushing the government to firstly close the airspace here, which they actually couldn't, but Israeli jets have been passing in the skies above us, which has been annoying them. And they have been warning for some days now that if there is an attack by the United States on Iran, then they will be wanting to get involved, and that will mean attacking embassies, bases, but also American personnel and American people who are here as well. So it's a very, very tense time here. I'd say that there are many people within this country and in other Arab countries that have no great love for Israel, perhaps you'd say, obviously, but Iran as well. They see them as a cause of much of the trouble that is here. I was talking to a gentleman yesterday who was saying that Iran has been causing so much trouble in the region, it would all be much more peaceful if it was attacked and this war came to an end, but they would like to see the regime change. So there's a divided opinion, but politically it's very, very difficult for this country, but it has to, I think it's almost unique, has to keep both sides on board. It has been doing to a certain degree, but what's happened overnight could change things dramatically, I suspect.
Yeah, dramatically.
Stuart, thank you so much for that update there from Erbil. We will keep you on standby as we wait to see how things evolve. But I'm just going to go straight to DC and speak with our Mark Stone. And Mark, we understand there's an update. President Trump and Benjamin Netanyahu have spoken. Just give us a readout of that.
Hold on, what's this?
Yeah, not a huge amount, but we can confirm that Trump spoke to the Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu this evening after the United States dropped those bombs on the...
Hold on. We're going to come back. Breaking. Islamists have stormed the train, New York Station. Complete chaos is unfolding. In New York?
لا
stupid. There's some racist people afraid of brown folks, and that's crazy.
Is due back to the White House tonight at 6 p.m., so 3 hours ago. Now,
what's with all the divide,
what we understood from that was that he was coming.
What's with all the divide? Why we can't at least, like, have some kind of humanity behind this whole situation?
That would be the point at which he would, in fact, not just authorize these strikes, because presumably that happened a few hours before that, but would have watched these strikes taking place in real time from the Situation Room. So a remarkable turn of events over the course of the past 24 hours. It was just yesterday that he, through his press secretary, announced that he would give diplomacy up to 2 weeks to run its course. And, I've been looking back at messages that I've had and discussions I've had with sources, both here in Washington, but in European capitals as well over the course of the past few days. And they're all saying the same thing. They're all saying that the sense that they had got from discussions with the Trump administration was that he was emphatically of the view that diplomacy should be given a chance. And yet tonight, we discover that he has in fact gone for this strike. Now, I think the way Donald Trump may or may not frame this when he speaks in an hour or so's time, but I think his mindset will be will be one of that this is just a moment that, yes, he still believes diplomacy can be given a chance, and that this decisive strike will in fact draw the Iranians into heel.
Let's see. Is this footage of the strike? What do y'all think? AI? Same video? Same video? Well, sorry about that, y'all. Are we going to war? Are we going to war? What do y'all think? Do you think the Iranians are going to respond? Do you think that response is going to trigger a reaction? Do you think that is going to continue until somebody surrenders? Well, you ask me, that's how wars start. And some people think it's one and done and they had fun. It's not how it worked. It's not how it worked. Now, this is crazy, you guys. This is crazy.
همینطوری دارن میزنن. ما چه گناهی کردیم تن بدنمون باید بلرزه؟ من به گازای شهرانو زدم.
We got footage coming out 42 minutes ago. Yeah, 29 minutes ago. Video. Same video. Oh, sorry. I saw the footage. What's this? That's a picture. Okay. Same video. Same. This looks like it's a little further back. So yeah, this is not good, you guys. This is not good for anybody. Yes, sorry about that. You didn't get to see the video? Forgive me. Here, I'll play the video again. that's the end of that one. That's the end of that one. And hold on. I think that's the same one. Yeah, that's the same one. That's the picture. Oh, sorry. Oh, look at me moving fast. So yeah. Supposedly, these videos are not AI. That's the same video. These videos are not AI. Let's see. This is the one you probably didn't see. So these are the two videos we have right now. Of course, it's a breaking news. So there's gonna be a lot more coming out.
ما چه گناهی کردیم تن بدنمون باید بلرزه من به گازای شهرانو زدم
People are right next to him. Right next.
ما چه گناهی کردیم تن بدنمون باید بلرزه
So let me see. Hold on. Let's look at. Let's see if somebody else got some other footage. This is crazy, you guys. This is a declaration of war. Hey, Iran. He's probably golfing right here. That's crazy, guys. Stop it. Stop it. This is not good. This is not good. People are gonna be cracking jokes about it. I want some more footage. Let's get some more footage. Yeah, it's the same video. People releasing the same video. So, if you're just now tuning in, we did, as America, our military, dropped a 30,000-pound bomb on Iran. I don't know if we dropped one or two. They were speculating that it wouldn't be done without two, so I think we dropped two. And now we're going to sit back and see what the consequences may or may not be. Not what I was waiting to see. So what is this? It's a picture. Fox News. So let's see what the news is talking about, because this is all breaking right now. Thanks for tuning in. Please share this stream, like, share, subscribe, and hit the notification bell.
Rapidly dispersed, and it's impossible to eliminate it to the extent that it can't be reconstituted if there is a political will by the Iranian government to do so. Obviously, we can talk about greater or lesser amounts of time it would take to reconstitute that. But the key variable here is, will Israeli and U.S. military action be such that it causes the people running Iran to renounce the nuclear program?
I think that's a live shot of Trump getting ready to come talk to us.
And I don't think you can get there kinetically by bombing
Getting ready to come speak. Explain why he did it.
And Alan, you have dealt with the Iranians. You're privy to the JCPOA, the nuclear deal that President Obama struck. Just talk us through, the interactions then, and was there a sense that they were willing then versus where they are now?
Certainly, back then they were willing to cap the amount they enriched, the type of centrifuges they had, the level to which they enriched uranium, and also to accept vastly greater verification measures and vastly greater transparency into their nuclear program in exchange for the lifting of sanctions. So when we were doing this, neither side got all they wanted. As President Obama said, he would have preferred to not have one centrifuge spinning. But back then we got a deal that was good enough. And the key variables back then were we were able to drastically limit the efficiency, the scope, the activities of Iran's nuclear program, and also vastly increase our ability to look into it. And I think it's likely now, though it's too soon to tell, that we're going to lose, obviously, that ability, that transparency, our ability to look into Iran's nuclear program on the day after.
You also mentioned there that perhaps Israel is not just looking at the elimination of Iran's nuclear program, but also has openly talked about regime change at different points and destabilizing the regime. But do you feel that that is also not plausible?
I mean, there's no perhaps. The Israeli Minister of Defense said we're looking to eliminate the nuclear program, eliminate their missile production.
Of course. It's all a fear tactic. Let me get rid of this, get rid of that. As Dave Smith said, Donald Trump has now launched an illegal war of aggression against Iran. The risk of absolute catastrophe is very high, and the benefits are non-existent. There's no benefit. Who's gonna benefit from this? Somebody tell me. I might, because I'm gonna play puts tomorrow. Monday when the market open. But who's gonna benefit from this? This is crazy, you guys. This is crazy. It's the arrogance on social media. Ha ha. Like, why? Donald Trump posting the flag. Like, look, this is how he wanted to end his presidency, you guys. Just like this. With the coldest, what's this, 51 minutes ago. Breaking. Yemen's Asra Allah warns America, be ready to bear the consequences. Right. Like they don't have allies, bro. This is fucking stupid. Fordo was gone. So I spelled it wrong. Oops. I got it from Fox though. So what that say about Fox? Dan Crenshaw, support President Trump. No. Get out of here, bro. Rashida Tlaib, how long ago? 11 minutes ago. President Trump sending U.S. troops to bomb Iran without consent of Congress is a blatant violation of our Constitution. That is damn right. What is it? Oh, she did a whole little... Yep. President Trump sending the U.S. troops to bomb Iran without the consent of Congress is a blatant violation of the Constitution. The American people do not want another forever war. We have seen where decades of endless war in the Middle East gets us, all based on the lie of weapons of mass destruction. We are not falling for it again. Instead of listening instead of listening to the American people, Trump is listening to war criminals Netanyahu, who lied about Iraq and is lying about once again about Iran. Congress must act immediately to exert its war powers and stop this unconstitutional act of war. That's right. Impeach him now. She didn't say that. I said that. Kevin McCarthy, I stand with President Trump. Iran must never have a nuclear weapon. See, here we go. So what happens if they moved it? We're just going to keep bombing them until we find it? Like, come on, you guys. Why are we so arrogant? Right. Exactly. Everyone's laughing until they get drafted. I like that. Put that on the shirt. Everyone's laughing until they get drafted. You didn't know it sounded like that, huh? This is crazy. Yeah. This is crazy. Who is this? Sneeko. Donald Trump is a sellout. Yes. Who betrayed America? Fucking Sneeko's right. Dave Rubin. Imagine being American and being upset right now. Sad. Why wouldn't we be? What? Wait, what? Dave. You better be upset. What's wrong with you? This is crazy. This is crazy, you guys. Like, this is going to be sad, man, when they get drafted. These right-wingers and their kids, they're going to send their kids out. They're going to be like, wait, not my baby. Yeah, your baby. Yeah, dumbest motherfucker on the planet just got us into World War III because he listened to a fellow psychopath. Exactly. It's crazy, bro. It's crazy, bro. This is crazy. This is gross. I don't know, man. I don't know. Hold on. What Ilhan Omar? Oh, yeah, Ilhan Omar. Statement from Representative Ilhan Omar on United States bombing of Iran. The strikes on Iran, ordered by President Trump and executed without congressional authorization, mark a dangerous and reckless escalation of an already volatile conflict in the Middle East. That is true. Military strikes we don't have to see more. We get it. This is crazy, you guys. And imagine now, think about this, because we brag about taking out their scientists, their head of defense, their generals. Soon as Iran responds and attempts one of those attacks on our head of defense and generals, they're going to call that an act of aggression. Like, this is how disgusting these people are, y'all. So we're going to have to watch this and pray. Pray for the people that are going to have to
in
serve.
Iran, in the last hour, including people who are, in the know or close to the positions of power, it seems very clear to me, Yalda, that we are in the middle of a battle in Tehran, a political battle over the future of Iran. It's very clear. This battle was already ongoing in the past few days, and it's now been posed very clearly. Iran must choose. Does it want to start a protracted war with the United States? Does it want to potentially start a war that will implicate also the Gulf Cooperation Council countries, Saudi Arabia and others by attacking them? Or does it ultimately want to find a negotiated path with Donald Trump? And does it believe that it can get a deal with Donald Trump? Does it believe that Donald Trump is honest?
Hold on, let's see what Al Jazeera got to say.
They're saying that first, quote unquote, he says, one of these local authorities, he's saying, we saw aggressions near Natanz and Isfahan nuclear facilities. And he's there to use the word near. That means they're going with a certain level of cautiousness, which is also there when it comes to another local authority in Qom, Qom province, which hosts the Fordo, another place, another nuclear facility, which is said to be targeted. And he is saying part of area Fordo enrichment center or nuclear facility was targeted. This is what we have so far, but we know, as I told you earlier, this is the very early hours of morning. We are closely following the developments. So far, we don't have any footage coming out. We don't have any official statement by top Iranian officials, politicians, or others. But still, we have now this reports about this in different media outlets, including the official media outlets, the state TV news agencies like IRNA, the state news agency. They are all covering the story. But still, we don't have, as I told you earlier, that much of details. But speaking of the context, we have to keep in mind that if it's a sort of U.S. intervention, we have to know that previously Iranian officials, different officials indeed, said that in case United States decides to get involved in this already intricate situation, that runs a big risk. And that big risk, according to Iranian officials, is to drag the war to a next unprecedented level, which is not going to be limited to Iran and Israel. Iranian officials previously said that if U.S. intervention happens, that's going to take the war into a regional context with the possibility of U.S. bases in neighboring countries to be targeted. This is not exactly what we have heard from Iranians, but they are saying that the war is going to be expanded to regional level in case they saw U.S. intervention, and now they're seeing it. This is the U.S. President Donald Trump.
Mind you.
Who came out on his X account.
They're not going to send themselves. They always send our babies. Benjamin Netanyahu's going to send Israeli kids. It's just going to be an all-out hell. And for the people that's bragging online on X, like America, you're greatest, I'm happy to have voted for this and yada yada. You're not going to be happy. You're not. The outcome is not going to be good. I promise you. So we're going to have to really sit back and assess this situation a little more humble than we are on social media. The Charlie Kirks of the world and the Lauren Loomer. Humble thyself, please. Make this a military situation, not a America versus Iran situation. Our humans, our civilians versus their civilians. Like, we hate these people. We have no beef with these people, you guys. This is governmental issues. We don't have to get involved and start lowering our standards and ourselves by talking the way these people are talking. It's disgusting, you guys.
Well, thanks for having me. I think the concern is very real. Iran has made it very clear that if the U.S. attacks Iran, then Iran is in its right to respond. And in fact, there are so many Iranian allies and proxies in the region who may not wait for an attack order from Tehran, who may take it upon themselves to hit at U.S. assets in the region, and there are plenty of U.S. assets in the regions. The United States has a big footprint in the Gulf region, so all of those could potentially be targeted by various Iranian allies.
Shahram, let me ask you, when it comes to escalation now in this region and concerns of a broader regional war, is there a precedent that exists for the action that we've seen that was taken by the U.S. in the last few hours, this type of preemptive strike on nuclear facilities?
Well, I guess the most obvious precedent is...
Think about this. The question about biblical war. Is this a biblical war? We got Laura Loomer saying, Candace Owens, why we can't aggressively protect our country? I don't want my country to be conquered by Islam. Who's thinking? They're not thinking about us. They just want to defend themselves. Jews and Christians need to unite to preserve our values, and yes, we do need to surveil jihad, mosaic and sleeper cells. Now, I'm not Christian. I'm not Jewish. I'm American. And this is my money that you guys are trying to spend on a biblical war. So for you to be, Laura, you young enough, why don't you go? Laura, hold on. How old is Laura Loomer? 32 years old. You're old enough to enlist. You take your ass over there and you fight. You fight. Since you so big and bold and think this is going to be an easy shot, go over there.
Let's take a look at the 3 nuclear sites President Donald Trump says the U.S. has attacked. U.S. forces have hit Fordo, Natanz, and Isfahan. The Natanz site is Iran's main uranium enrichment site. Fordo is another facility where nuclear fuel can be purified. And Isfahan is a site that Iran uses to convert uranium. Shahram, from your perspective, as you mentioned, Iran has stated clearly in the run-up to these strikes by the U.S. that if the U.S. were to strike Iran, that Iran would then hit out at U.S. potentially bases or other assets in the Middle East going forward. Behind the scenes in Iran, is there concern about if that action is taken, what repercussions would result from it?
Repercussions? Why would there be repercussions to a retaliation?
I think, of course, there is concern. But what this attack has done is it has basically
Please stop wasting our money.
Significantly eliminated and removed the threat of a popular uprising in the country. The idea, the logic behind the Netanyahu attack and the US attack is that this kind of military intervention would bring about a popular uprising to depose the government.
Yep.
Basing on the assessment that the government in Iran is unpopular and that it is ready to be toppled over. The fact of the matter is, when you have a foreign intervention and foreign military attack, that is only going to galvanize the population behind the government, even though the government in Iran is very, very unpopular. So the Iranian response to military...
That is the same thing we can use out here. Very unpopular. We are at a weak place financially. We can't afford this. And if there's a crazy uprising, this can cause some kind of change out here.
Food inside of Iran right now. You were talking about the fact that it's unlikely that there would be mass protests at this point because of this action taken by the U.S., that it's unlikely there would be regime change. We do know that Israeli officials had hoped that one of the eventualities of their strikes on Iran, or if the U.S. were to be involved, which now they are involved, is that there could potentially be, they thought, regime change in Iran. We know that the opposition in Iran has been fractured for many years. There's been a lot of infighting amongst those groups. Right now, is there that sort of rally around the flag effect happening that's uniting Iranians in this moment?
Well, there is a degree of rallying around the flag, but much more urgently, Iranians have no interest in bringing about regime change or changing the government at the moment. What they're concerned about at the moment is their own safety, finding a safe place to protect themselves against.
Exactly. They're not thinking about no regime change. Why would they want to? That's just that Western mindset. Change your leader, change your religion, change everything about you. Be like us, or else we bomb. It's just and I guarantee you, if they successfully retaliate, they're gonna be even more of an enemy. That's how dumb we are. If they successfully retaliate against one of our bases out there, oh my God, they're going to be the evilest people on planet Earth. How dare they not just let us bomb them and walk away? My God, my God.
Tonight to come back to the negotiating table, but the president just yesterday dismissed the idea that Iran could have civilian nuclear capabilities, which the Iranians have made clear for years now would be a non-starter. The idea that they would have zero uranium enrichment capacity, and that is where the president, when I asked him yesterday in New Jersey whether he would even request Israel to halt its airstrikes as a means of trying to bring Iran back to the negotiating table, he was quite clear that that would be a, quote, hard thing to do because Israel was winning. Just over 24 hours later, the president moving forward with these strikes. Of course, there are a lot of questions, Jose, beyond this. The president suggesting that it is now up to Iran to move forward with any potential nuclear arrangements with the United States and that troops are no longer in Iran airspace. At the same time, Iran had made it clear that they would target in retaliatory airstrikes U.S. military installations, even if the U.S. continued to defend Israeli airspace like it has this last week. This takes it to the next level. I can report that even this afternoon, the U.S. and Iran still had an open line of communication here.
Oh, really?
The other question moving forward was just how close Iran was to nuclear weapon capabilities, Jose. The Director of National Intelligence had testified up on Capitol Hill this spring that there was no U.S. intelligence that Iran was actively building a nuclear weapon. Now, we know over the last months they had increasingly enriched higher levels of uranium that would ultimately go in to a nuclear weapon. But I asked the president about that intelligence. He dismissed his own intelligence community's assessment and that of his director of national intelligence, Tulsi Gabbard, saying they were, quote, wrong. 24 hours later, again, the president deciding to move with these striking hits on Iran. There's a lot of questions of just how much damage has been done to these nuclear facilities here. But for now, we expect to hear from the president in just over 20 minutes from the White House upon his announcement that the U.S. moved forward with these offensive strikes within Iran. Jose.
And Vaughn, as we await those words from the President of the United States, our own Kristen Welker is just wrapping up a conversation with President Trump in which he refers specifically to these missions that we saw and that we've been talking about, calling it, quote, a complete and total success. The question many would have at this hour, Vaughn, is why now? Why tonight?
The question, I think, is a good one, Jose, and that's one that the president will have to answer. Seemingly in the exchanges that I had with him on that New Jersey tarmac yesterday, the president seemed to question the motives and the intentionality of Iran in these nuclear negotiations, saying that they had 60 days. He had given them a 2-month timeline to come to the table to the U.S. and work in good faith, and that they had missed that 60-day marker. At the same time, the president had given them essentially this extra 2-week window here, and it just seemed like there was an impasse between what Iran demanded, and that was the capacity to enrich uranium. One that we should note, the U.S. under the Obama administration back in 2015 had struck a nuclear agreement with Iran that back in 2018 the Trump administration had pulled out of, and that agreement allowed for international UN inspectors to go into those very Iranian nuclear facilities and inspect the uranium enrichment that Iran was moving forward with. But it also capped the levels of uranium in which they would be able to produce, essentially keeping it under 5%, which would be for civilian nuclear capabilities, for medical and other purposes. And the president, again, just yesterday, when I asked whether he would be open to a similar agreement, one in which they would be able to enrich up to that civilian nuclear capability level, he said that he did not believe that there was any reason for them to enrich at all, which again, Iran had said was a non-starter here. And so it looked like the president, he had made clear, I asked him a question of, again, going back to that questionable intelligence about whether Iran was actively seeking to build a nuclear weapon. I asked him very specifically to compare this to 20 years ago when the president, years into the Iraq War, questioned the U.S. administration of the Bush White House to go into Iraq on questionable intelligence of weapons of mass destruction. And he was very clear to me that he believed that Iran was weeks, if not months, away from having nuclear weapon capabilities. So we will wait to see what he says tonight. But 24 hours before the airstrikes, the last time we heard him speak on camera ahead of the decision to move forward with these offensive measures here, the president made the case, despite his own intelligence community saying otherwise, that he believed that Iran was within weeks or months of a nuclear bomb capabilities. Jose.
And for more, I want to bring in the moderator of Meet the Press, Kristen Welker. Kristen, we were just mentioning that you just literally got off the phone with the president. What did he have to say?
Well, Jose, he is clearly feeling emboldened. He called these strikes a great success, a complete and total success. He then said he had to get off of the phone, he said, because he has to make a speech about it, which of course we are anticipating at the top of the hour. I did try to ask him some of those questions that you were just discussing with Vaughn, but again, it was clear that was the message that he wanted to take out and to get out, and that he was not going to answer questions in this moment. So we will have to wait and see what he has to say at 10 p.m. But again, I do think it's important to stress what Vaughn was just talking about, which is that this decision came after the Trump administration had for some time tried to strike a diplomatic deal with Iran to get rid of its nuclear weapons program. And then President Trump saying he was going to give Iran another 2 weeks before making that final decision. And ultimately, it's clear the administration must have come to the conclusion that that diplomacy was running into wall after wall, was not yielding the results that they were hoping for. And of course, it's also worth noting that President Trump ripped up the Iran nuclear deal that had been struck under former President Obama. Mr. Trump arguing it didn't go far enough. Obama officials arguing that was the very thing that stood in the way of Iran being able to develop a nuclear weapon. So that's some of the context to this. And then just broadly speaking, we're starting to see the debate play out in Congress. Tim Kaine out with a statement saying the American public is overwhelmingly opposed to the U.S. waging war on Iran. And the Israeli foreign minister admitted yesterday that the Israeli bombing had set the Iranian nuclear program back at least 2 to 3 years. I will push for all senators to vote on whether they are for this third, what he calls a, quote, idiotic Middle East war. So that is part of the pushback that you are starting to see on Capitol Hill. And that is part of the debate that I think we will see play out in the coming days and weeks as we watch and wait to see what President Trump has to say when he does address the nation in less than a half an hour from now, Jose.
Kristen Welker, thank you so very much. I want to bring in our chief foreign correspondent, Richard Engel, in Tel Aviv tonight. Richard, we've been talking about the reaction here in the United States on Capitol Hill, but how could this strike impact the region, and what has been the reaction in different parts of the Middle East?
This region is already at war, so this is just another phase of an expanding war, a war that Israel has been carrying out very successfully militarily from Israel's point of view since the October 7th attacks. We're hearing from Iranian officials already. This coming from Iranian state media, and they are reporting that the nuclear material was evacuated from these sites that were hit.
Laura.
That whatever was inside, and they didn't specify, had been taken out. That coming from Iranian, an editor on Iranian state television, on Iranian state media, which is semi-official, speaks for the government, and an advisor to the Speaker of Parliament, both saying the same thing, that those facilities had been evacuated. Here in Israel, we are expected to hear from Prime Minister Netanyahu, who's expected to speak after President Trump gives his remarks. But already there has been a notification put out to the public here, a change of the home front security status, telling people to be more cautious, limiting freedom of movement here. No schools, no gatherings, only essential work gatherings, putting this country more or less in lockdown for the time being.
And Richard, any support that Iran could have expected or desired since October the 7th has been severely deteriorated. I'm thinking from the proxies like Hezbollah, like the Houthis, and like Hamas.
This is something that Prime Minister Netanyahu has long wanted to do, and people over the last several days have been going through the archive and showing clips of Netanyahu for years, for decades even, talking about the imminent threat of Iran developing a nuclear weapon, how it's close to the breakout moment that the United States needs to attack. But Israel's long concern by Netanyahu, but also intelligence and the Israeli military, was that if a military action was taken, that Iran could respond, not directly, but could respond through its proxies. And the main one that Israel was concerned about was Hezbollah. Hamas was always a concern, but Hamas's military capacity, its rockets, was known. The major sword hanging over Israel's head was the military capacity of Hezbollah. That's been taken away. It gave Israel the opportunity to do this. But now, as you mentioned, the debate around the world is and must be, just because you can do something, should you do something? And where will this lead?
Right.
Will this open a door to a corridor that is long and dark? Or can President Trump, as he's likely to frame it, as a one and done? This is the U.S. intervened. The U.S. isn't going to get sucked into another black hole in the Middle East, that this was a one-time offer giving Israel military capacity that it didn't have, and now it is up to Israel to continue the mission. That is potentially an American plan, a possible way for President Trump to try and split the difference, that he intervened, but he's not an interventionist. But as Jose, as you know, and anyone who's covered this region for a long time knows, it is easy to start wars. It is very difficult to end them. And once you start conducting major destabilizing attacks against a foreign government, particularly a dictatorship, there is the risk that you have regime change, and then the entire map of the region starts to adjust. It starts to shift. If you pull one piece out of the puzzle, everything else adjusts around it, as we've seen ourselves.
Yeah, and Richard,
it's not that easy,
there
man.
are so many unknowns.
Iran,
there are so many questions.
Final
and
chip.
If you look at history,
Country
there
number
have
7.
been repercussions, many times unthought of repercussions. And I'm thinking of from Lebanon, Syria recently. Many countries that have been affected, and then other countries have been affected through the repercussions of that. And Richard, what are the major players in the region you think seeing
let's see what
today?
These bastards on Fox got to say. Hold on real quick. This is crazy, man. This is crazy, you guys. Buckle up. Buckle up. Get your boots on.
With some of its aspirations in a variety of places around the world, not to mention the South China Sea. And what they're doing.
Make sure you walk around your house with your
one of
shoes
its core
on.
allies.
Keep your shoes.
One of its support beams. Sending things like
Just in
ballistic
case.
missiles
You never
and
know.
drones up to Russia in its war with Ukraine, and so they're going to have to reevaluate where they are geostrategically.
We waiting on Trump.
And they would be in a very difficult
Trump. He's getting
situation.
ready to speak real soon.
Albeit with one thing I should mention, that with this war, oil prices have spiked, which has actually increased the amount of revenue going into Russia from oil sales. So in the short run, they've actually kind of profited from this war in terms of oil revenue, even though they've been pretty much cut off from any other stuff or any other support coming from Iran because of all the airstrikes and stuff. They've actually, from a revenue standpoint, they were in desperate straits, and all of a sudden they have a lot more money that they can spend on war fighting in Ukraine.
This is what we heard from President Trump on social media right after it happened. This, in fact, was the announcement about the strike itself. We expect the president to speak on camera from the White House at the top of the hour in 14 minutes. He says, "We have completed our very successful attack on the 3 nuclear sites in Iran, including Fordow, Natanz, and Esfahan. All planes are now outside of Iran airspace. A full payload of bombs was dropped on the primary site, Fordow. We've now since learned that it was 6 B-2 bombers, 3 B-2s that dropped 6 bunker busters on Fordow. Trump says all planes are safely on their way home. The president says congratulations to our great American warriors. There is not another military in the world that could have done this, he says. Now is the time for peace. Thank you for your attention to this matter, he says." So, I gotta focus in on the second to last sentence there. It's in all caps. Now is the time for peace, Trump says. Does peace seem like the type of response Iran might have after something like this, Hal?
I find that interesting, the all caps thing. I don't want to get into textology that much, it's like, what is it, all caps or whatever? And but President Trump, let's just say he's been known to send texts. All right. I think it's a way of communication he's very comfortable with. And when he puts that in there, that's a message aimed directly at the Iranian regime, which is a way of saying, hey, look, you need to come to the negotiating table and figure this out. And, basically, the door's open if you choose to go this way. The fact the Iranian regime played games with that 60-day window where they could have negotiated something, and of course the Iranians, they said nope, unless we're allowed to keep doing everything we want to do, then we won't agree to anything. And of course, now they paid that price for that position. And you have to remember, for the Iranian regime, over the top combative rhetoric and politics is kind of what keeps them in power. If they weren't able to say death to America and pledge to the destruction of Israel, they would have a very small vocabulary, because that's pretty much what they say all the time. So they kind of have to do that. That's part of their, if you will, their id, if you will, their self-identification is being this revolutionary Shiite regime that is trying to take over the Middle East and everything else. That's kind of who they are. And so the time for peace, that's very difficult. And again, if they agree to everything, again, they're going to have to look to the Iranian people, who are going to look at them and say, so exactly what are you again? You can't protect us. You can't do all these other things. We're certainly not going to, maintain a reasonable standard of living with you in power. And now you have to abandon everything you've been saying for the last, 45 years plus. So what exactly are you? And so that's going to be difficult, but that's exactly what it is. It's not just an agreement. They're going to have to come to what would essentially be a peace agreement, which is a significant agreement which a number of parties would have to buy off on, not just the U.S., but Israel and others would have to buy off on, which would eliminate Iran as a threat in the region and worldwide. And there would probably be some conditions put in there which really get into imposing on Iranian sovereignty, if you will, some of the sovereign control that they have within the country, which to date, that has been a big red line for the Iranians. They just won't agree to stuff like that. And part of the reason is because it goes to their core identity of what the regime represents. And I'm sure they're afraid that if they actually agree to this thing, it could be the tipping point where the regime no longer, is no longer in power.
We expect President Trump to address the nation in 10 minutes. I just got a new report in from Fox News' Trey Yingst. He put together this package. He catches us up on everything that's happened in recent hours. Here's Trey.
Yeah, Brett, good evening. This has been the talk of Israel for the past several days as the country waited to see if the Americans would get directly involved in the conflict. And even up in the last few hours, I was talking with current and former sources, trying to get an understanding of when this might happen. And at 1:55 local time, one source said rumors, Trump gave the word, supposed to be happening now. We were working on tracking it down, and the president taking to Truth Social to say the Americans did indeed strike 3 separate Iranian nuclear facilities, including the Fordow nuclear facility deep underground outside of the Iranian capital of Tehran. The bottom line here is that people are talking about enrichment. They understand that this decision was made because the Iranians were increasing their uranium enrichment capabilities and increasing the purity closer and closer to weapons-grade material. And the concern was that the Iranian regime was just weeks away from being able to build a nuclear bomb. We've seen over the past 9 days, the country has the ability to strike major population centers here in Israel with ballistic missiles. So you can imagine that having a nuclear warhead that could ultimately be attached to a ballistic missile would clearly be a direct threat to the Jewish state. And that was why the Israelis said that they made the decision to start these strikes against Iranian nuclear facilities and against top IRGC officials. And clearly tonight, President Trump ordering these strikes against the Iranian regime's nuclear program because there was no off-ramp for diplomacy at this point. And so this is a historic moment in the Middle East tonight, and again, an opportunity for the region, as the president laid out in his statement, for peace in the future, because this is a region that understands peace through strength.
Trey Yingst reporting earlier today with Brett Baer. Hal Kempfer is still with me. We are 7 minutes away.
That's just crazy, y'all.
From expecting President Trump to address the nation. We're expecting it at the top of the hour. Hal, you just heard the word historic in Trey's piece. Why is this historic? The U.S. striking in Iran proper, 3 different places.
Well, first off, since 1979, this is the first time we've ever struck Iran, certainly in this way. we've actually launched these major strikes, Tomahawk missiles, taking out nuclear facilities, and then B-2 bombers, strategic bombers. You got to remember, they're not just planes. These are planes.
Is that a direct threat to our president?
Weapons.
5 minutes ago.
The plane that we use when Armageddon is upon us, if you will. They didn't have nuclear weapons, obviously. They had these unique massive ordnance penetrators that have been so much focus of interest. These
You're losing so bad, though. Wow.
That burrow deep within the earth to destroy these.
I'm too young for this.
Designed with places like Bordeaux.
People were tired, fatigued.
Bordeaux and some other places.
We are really following this
and
war.
And it's this unique capability. Israelis don't have it. Nobody else has it anywhere in the world. Only we do. And the delivery system is a B-2 bomber. Again, the only thing that the U.S. has anywhere in the world.
We have the right to defend
yourself. And we brought all of this to basically eliminate the ability of Iran to make a nuclear weapon. Now, that's pretty darn historic because Iran has been playing with trying to build a nuclear weapon for a very long time and for decades. And we have now kinetically taken that off. So that's very historic. It's also historic in that it's also opened up the possibility that the U.S. could get pulled into a war with Iran. That's historic. Some would say ominous that's taken place, but it was a calculated risk that we assumed in doing what we did. And I think depending on what happens in Iran, depending on what happens with the regime there, the longevity of the regime there, historians may come back and look at this as a big turning point in terms of Iranian history. And by the way, if Iran ceases to be this nemesis
sitting back laughing
in the
at
region,
this shit like this is a good
ceases
thing.
To be this fomenter of terrorism for not just in the Middle East, but terrorism all over the world, but particularly in the Middle East. This that's been supporting all of these extremist Shiite militia groups, Hezbollah, Hamas, was behind the perpetrator, was basically behind the October 7th attack being able to take place.
The Charlie Kirks of the world.
If this is, and of course, not to mention the Houthis, basically stopping shipping in one of the globe's most important sea lanes for the amount of time that they had. If this is taken off, it changes the entire strategic picture of the Middle East because Iran is so important as a provider of oil and also in terms of location for China, because they're such an important supporter of Russia.
I got my IMPP calls,
drones and ballistic missiles and everything else.
What happened?
This could be one of those pivotal points where we see a big change, the second, third order effects of what just happened. And we could say this completely changed the map across the world in terms of strategic balance of power. It could be something that big, but then again, we'll have to see.
Regime change keeps coming up a lot. What does our largely American audience need to know about the Iranian regime? And conversely, what do they need to know about the general Iranian public at large, the populace?
Well, first thing is the Iranian public at large, about 89% of them can't stand the regime. They hate them. They
stop saying that. We've just seen a video where
times on the streets
shows that they love them.
Basically overthrow.
They love them.
Basically create enough social gravitas to overthrow a regime. They have not been able to pull that off, and the regime has been absolutely horrific in its response, sweeping people off the streets, doing these executions, very public way of making a point, imprisoning political dissenters, everything. I mean, they're a very
imprisoning political dissenters. Ain't that what we're doing out here, you guys?
They're also this regime.
Isn't that what we're doing out here?
Imprisoning
political
free elections or anything we consider. They scope in the elections, so only the parties or the candidates that they will handpick are ever allowed to show up on the ballot.
No,
and
we
handpick. Put their thumb on the scale to make sure
for their countries
that whomever they want
Think about
is the person that's elected.
We're dictators
and then
in other
over
countries.
the government
and they're mad.
is this the supreme leader and his council, which are all a bunch of theocrats that basically control the country. So that's what it is, and it's this Shiite extremist belief. Since 1979, when they overthrew the Shah of Iran, they have basically built their brand on two things: destruction of Israel
and they overthrew
death to America. That's their
Iraq.
two
Don't forget about that. What America
bumper
helped.
sticker phrases. That's what they kind of identify with. And this constant, never-ending struggle. Some would say war, if you will, although technically in Arabic, well, I should say jihad is an Arabic term, and jihad actually means struggle. It doesn't always mean war per se, although when we say jihad, we normally mean war. And I should mention that Arabic is not the predominant language in Iran. It's actually Farsi, so it's maybe it's kind
what
of a moot
does
point.
jihad
But anyway,
mean?
They have kind of built their brand on this thing, that they have this constant struggle, conflict, whatever,
against the enemy
with Israel and
Islam.
the West, and part of that goes back into the history of Iran. The Shah of Iran, when he came into power in '53, kind of the U.S. and Great Britain were behind getting him into power because there was another guy in there who we felt was too favorable, or was basically leaning towards the Soviet Union, different era, Cold War. I don't want to get into all the details.
Well, no, we know the details.
But
you guys
the
are
feeling
disgusting.
was that the U.S. had basically
fucking game with other people's lives
fomented a
and
coup
country.
to put the Shah into power. They put the Shah in power, and they've aimed everything at the West. They've been anti-Western the entire time.
Why wouldn't
and
they?
So that's what that is.
You just explained the good reason why they should be
about.
anti-West.
And so right now, all the things that underlie that regime, all the things that underlie, has now taken the thing they've always pointed at is like, we might be able to develop a nuclear weapon. We might be a member of the nuclear club. We might be, quote, invincible because we have nuclear capability. That's what they've kind of held out for a very long period of time.
Yeah.
Well,
what's wrong with
one
that?
fell swoop, we went in there and eliminated their capability to do that, as near as we can tell right now. And that's
we did
going
what
to have,
we did, but we don't know
along
if it worked.
with Israel literally controlling the skies over Iran, that has, some significant impact on the ability of this regime to maintain itself in power.
Al, we appreciate your time. I will say that it's now 10 o'clock Eastern time. We anticipate that the president will step up to this podium any moment now. We don't know if he's going to come out any second now, any minute now, but I'm going to keep you on the line here, Hal, until we see President Trump walk out. Let's
bring
ask
your
one
ass
more
out here
time,
and tell us what the
what
fuck
exactly
going on.
are you going to be looking to hear from the president? This is going to be the first time we've heard him on camera since we heard about this. What we've heard from him on social media is that we have completed what he calls very successful attacks on 3 nuclear sites in Iran. That includes Fordow, Natanz, and Isfahan. Hal, it looks like President Trump.
Oh, sorry. Here he comes. My bad. Look at me. I'm moving too fast.
Kimberly, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but Donald Trump is approaching the podium.
Thank you very much. A short time ago, the U.S. military carried out massive precision strikes on the 3 key nuclear facilities in the Iranian regime: Fordow, Natanz, and Isfahan. Everybody heard those names for years as they built this horribly destructive enterprise. Our objective was the destruction of Iran's nuclear enrichment capacity and a stop to the nuclear threat posed by the world's #1 state sponsor of terror. Tonight, I can report to the world that the strikes were a spectacular military success. Iran's key nuclear enrichment facilities have been completely and totally obliterated. Iran, the bully of the Middle East, must now make peace. If they do not, future attacks will be far greater and a lot easier. For 40 years, Iran has been saying death to America, death to Israel. They have been killing our people, blowing off their arms, blowing off their legs with roadside bombs. That was their specialty. We lost over 1,000 people, and hundreds of thousands throughout the Middle East and around the world have died as a direct result of their hate, in particular So many were killed by their general, Qasem Soleimani. I decided a long time ago that I would not let this happen. It will not continue. I want to thank and congratulate Prime Minister Bibi Netanyahu. We worked as a team like perhaps no team has ever worked before. And we've gone a long way to erasing this horrible threat to Israel. I want to thank the Israeli military for the wonderful job they've done. And most importantly, I want to congratulate the great American patriots who flew those magnificent machines tonight, and all of the United States military on an operation the likes of which the world has not seen in many, many decades. Hopefully, we will no longer need their services in this capacity. I hope that's so. I also want to congratulate the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, General Dan Raisin-Kane, spectacular general, and all of the brilliant military minds involved in this attack.
Raisin-Kane sounds
good. With all
good,
of that being said, this cannot continue. There will be either peace or there will be tragedy for Iran far greater than we have witnessed over the last 8 days. Remember, there are many targets left. Tonight's was the most difficult of them all, by far, and perhaps the most lethal. But if peace does not come quickly, we will go after those other targets with precision, speed, and skill. Most of them can be taken out in a matter of minutes. There's no military in the world that could have done what we did tonight, not even close. There has never been a military that could do what took place just a little while ago. Tomorrow, General Kane, Secretary of Defense, Pete Hegseth will have a press conference at 8 a.m. at the Pentagon. And I want to just thank everybody, and in particular, God. I want to just say we love you, God, and we love our great military. Protect them.
Hey,
God bless
remember that
the Middle
pastor
East.
that was
God
on
bless
Piers
Israel,
Morgan.
and God bless America. Thank you very much.
He
Thank
made
you.
sure that he put God in there.
All right,
Made
let's
sure
go
that he
back
put
now
God
to
in
Kimberly
there.
Halkett, our White House correspondent, to talk us through what we just heard from U.S. President Donald Trump, who addressed the nation live about those U.S. strikes on the 3 nuclear facilities in Iran. Kimberly, we heard President Trump say that the U.S. objective was destruction of Iran's nuclear enrichment capacity and a stop to the nuclear threat. What else did we hear from the president?
Yeah, we heard that we heard what we believe is the U.S. president's justification for taking action. And I don't think it's going to sit well with a lot of his critics as well as a lot of his supporters, given the fact that he did not anywhere say that the United States was under imminent threat, which would have made this legal under the U.S. Constitution. Instead, the U.S. president laying out the reasoning for taking these strikes was that he saw that the United States, or rather that that Iran was the bully of the Middle East, and that they have
Not
been
of America.
chanting death to America. But just because they were chanting does not mean the United States was an imminent threat. He also said that a lot of people died as a result of Iran's hate. Again, not specifying those were Americans. So the U.S. president now believing, as we are reporting indicated, that in fact there are no other strikes that are planned currently, but the U.S. president threatening if Iran does not come back to the negotiating table, if it does not sign off on an agreement to end its nuclear program, that there will be further retaliation by the United States. There will, and he says it will be far greater and a lot easier. Now, the other thing that the U.S. president said, which is very clear, and I think is going to be played a lot in the United States, is that the United States has erased this threat to Israel, but he did not say this threat to the United States. That is not going to sit well with a lot of Americans who believe that Israel has now dragged the United States into a vulnerability that could be a broader escalation in the Middle East that could involve putting American troops at risk and drawing even further resources paid by the American taxpayers.
Yeah, Kimberly, you had Donald Trump there in his address, flanked by U.S. Vice President J.D. Vance, also U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio, and U.S. Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth. And as you mentioned, Trump had called this operation a spectacular military success. But he also said, as you mentioned, that if there is no peace, that there will be tragedy far greater than what Iran has witnessed in the past 8 days or so. I mean, how do you square that message? And is this a moment of political peril for Trump?
It
Trump
absolutely is a moment of political peril for Trump. Trump could even subject himself to potential impeachment.
Yes, he can.
If there
Impeach
is
him now.
enough, and I don't think there would be the appetite in Congress right now, given the fact that it is controlled by Republicans. But again, that could change with midterm elections.
Yep.
The U.S. president has made himself very vulnerable politically.
Yep.
And we also have to point out that the three gentlemen that were standing behind him, the Secretary of State National Security Advisor Marco Rubio, and then the two other gentlemen, the Vice President J.D. Vance and the Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth, have very different views months ago on whether or not the United States should be involved in any conflict in support of Israel. And I could tell you that when it came to the thinking of Marco Rubio, he was really the only one that was championing this and has been for many, many years as a senator on Capitol Hill. But if you look at many of the statements from J.D. Vance, the Vice President, as well as Pete Hegseth, the Secretary of Defense, they were far less interventionist and more advocating for the United States to play a lesser role in foreign conflicts. So it's going to be difficult for them as well politically, given the fact that J.D. Vance does have aspirations to run for president. Donald Trump cannot run after this term, and he is probably more than likely going to have to answer for this decision,
he has
which
a bunker
he is now attached to.
So, Kimberly, in the aftermath of the U.S. having entered the fray in Iran, entered the conflict in Iran, you now have, as you just described it, essentially a war between the interventionist wing of Trump's people and the isolationist wing of Trump's people. Do we expect that that battle is going to heat up in the days to come?
Yes, and there are many that are looking to exploit that even further, namely the Democrats here in the United States, who are having their own issues as a political party right now. They are embroiled in a challenge with leadership, in fundraising, and of course the shellacking, to use President Obama's term, of the last election, where they really saw their ranks eroded in terms of support in about every sector of demographic that had traditionally supported the Democratic Party. So this is an opportunity for the political opponents, opposition of Donald Trump, who are going to seize on the fact that there are major divisions within the Republican Party over the action the U.S. president has taken. For anyone who hasn't followed Donald Trump, he has repeatedly said that he wanted to get the United States out of forever war. He was a sharp critic of the U.S. invasion of Iraq. Now, he has also, the White House insisted, been very clear that he believed that Iran should not have a nuclear weapon. However, what he has done as commander-in-chief is something that does not guarantee Iran couldn't obtain a nuclear weapon in the future. Even though these three sites have been targeted, we have not had any damage assessment. That presumably will come in the Pentagon briefing that the Secretary of Defense will hold at 12G on Sunday. But the bottom line is that even if there is one thumb drive with the information necessary to rekindle and start a new nuclear program, Iran is within its rights to do that. It has, as a member of the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty, as a nation, a sovereign nation that does not have nuclear weapons, it is able to have nuclear energy for civilian purposes. It can continue to or restart a program of some kind. So the U.S. president, despite the fact that he has said that he has erased the threat to Israel, that he has completely obliterated any possibility of the nuclear program, this simply isn't the case, because the technology exists to rebuild it. And we know that when it comes to the targeting, Israel's targeting of nuclear scientists in Iran, that not all of them were taken out. So the U.S. president making some very broad claims in his very short address there in the entrance to the East Room of the White House, some that he will no doubt have to answer to politically and potentially even with further congressional action.
Like this is a game.
That's our White House correspondent, Kimberly Halkett, live for us from Washington, D.C. Kimberly, thanks for breaking that all down for us. Please stay with us. We'll be coming back. back to you shortly. Let's go straight now to Tauhid Asadi. He's in the Iranian capital, Tehran. Tauhid, what else are we hearing now from Iranian officials, and has there been any response to the remarks we just heard a few minutes back from U.S. President Donald Trump?
Well, actually, the latest response from the Iranian side goes to the Atomic Energy Organization of the country, which just a few minutes ago came out with a statement. Of course, it doesn't contain about how Iran is going to respond. The very fundamental question that we are dealing at the time being, seeing the previous statements that we heard from different Iranian officials, including the supreme leader, who a couple of days ago came out with a video message saying that any U.S. intervention into this already complicated situation is going to bring massive and quote-unquote irreversible damage. And also he said that the fact that U.S. intervention could be there shows that Israelis are weak. But right now, the reality on the ground is that this attack happened, and it happened after a series of previous attacks by the Israelis targeting different facilities, including Natanz. For several times, we had reports on that over the past few days about nuclear facilities of the country being targeted alongside with other military places. But right now, there is this big development about U.S. intervention into this intricate situation. We've got this statement from Iran's nuclear energy organization saying that it contradicts international law and it's quite against NPT. Also, they confirmed the attack on 3 nuclear facilities of Natanz, Fordo, and Isfahan. Also, they said that they were criticizing, quote unquote, IAEA for indifference and even support of this strike, noting that this was a couple of days ago, one day before the initiation of Israeli strikes, there was a resolution adopted by the Board of Governors of IAEA. And for some Iranians, that resolution paved the way for a possibility of this strike, though IAEA and the Director General himself told Al Jazeera that he denies such a sort of impact. Also, we've got this statement in which we've got this, they're saying that those 3 targeted sites were under quote-unquote continuous inspection of IAEA, and that they're saying this national industry, referring to Iran's nuclear program, is not going to be stopped, something that we were much expecting to hear. They were said that if attacks happen, this is not going to be the ending or termination of Iran's nuclear program. But still, we have to talk about a wider context, the bigger picture that is taking place. Speaking of the United States' role, first of all, Iranian officials previously criticized the United States. The Iranian President Masoud Pezeshkian and other officials were saying that initiation of Israeli strikes couldn't have happened without green light of the United States. Also, they were saying that any U.S. intervention runs the risk of a further escalated situation down the road, saying that it could move this escalation into a next unprecedented level, running the risk of a regional full-fledged, all-out war scenario. And now we see it, and we are seemingly in the middle of that scenario. Also, we have to keep in mind another key contextual element, and that's the very fact that Iran and the United States were in the middle of a diplomatic trajectory. Iran and the United States were supposed to have their 6th round of negotiations on Iran's nuclear program scheduled for last Sunday. But the thing is that now with this new developments, and previously Iranians were saying that under attack, seeing their country being targeted, they are not going to negotiate. We can rest assured that previously the process of diplomatic trajectory to settle down the issues was injured by this adoption of resolution by Board of Governors, by Israeli strikes, and now we see it being headshot after this U.S. direct intervention into this complicated scenario. And one last point that I think we have to keep in mind is that Iranians are saying that the resolution adopted by the Board of Governors, one important development, was drafted by the United States and 3 European countries. Iranian Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi was in Geneva at request, quote unquote, by him, at request of the European side. He said that I'm not there to get engaged in negotiations, but I'm there to listen to what they're saying. But at the heart of all these diplomatic developments, when he was in Turkey, when he was in Geneva, and the Iranians are saying we were just in the middle of this bigger context of negotiations, this strike took place, and this is going to be a new scenarios for which we are waiting. Speaking of Iranian response, I think we have to wait because this is really such a big development, and we are anticipating top Iranian officials to come out. And the big question here would be like how Iran is going to be respond. To answer that question, we have to keep waiting.
All right, that's Tauhid Asadi live for us in Tehran. Thanks so much, Tauhid. Let's go back now live to Harlan Ullman. He's a political and military analyst, and he's also chairman of the Kilowan Group and a senior advisor at the Atlantic Council. He's joining me from Washington, D.C. Harlan, thanks for coming back on to Al Jazeera with us. So we've heard now this address from U.S. President Donald Trump just a short while ago. He called the action that they had taken in Iran a spectacular military success, but he also said that the U.S. objective was the destruction of Iran's nuclear enrichment capacity and a stop to the nuclear threat. From your assessment, what was the main message here from Trump, and what do you think this portends going forward?
Well, his message was clear: America first. I did what I need to do. I
America first,
Iran,
Israel first.
Put them in a position where they have to negotiate. And without saying it, he meant I'm the greatest in the world. We will see what the bomb damage assessment is. As I said, usually we tend to exaggerate the damage that's been done. You may not recall, but during the height of the bombing in Nazi Germany in October 1944, Germany was making more planes and submarines than any other time during the war. So we'll see what damage was actually done, but that's not the key issue. The issue is what comes next. And it could well be that President Trump has said, I did what I need to do. Now it's up to Iran and Israel to finish the conclusions that will end this particular conflict. I don't think it's going to happen. I think there are going to be continuing stages. I do not believe that Iran is going to sit back and allow this to happen. My expectation is that Iran has been prepared for this sort of attack. If they haven't, they're more incompetent than people can imagine. And so, as I said earlier, this may be the beginning of a long, long situation. Because quite frankly, the targets that are left in Iran are going to be the oil facilities, the gas facilities, and the infrastructure on which the Iranian public is dependent. And it turns out that the more bombing that one does, the more likely the population will turn against those doing the bombing. So it's not entirely clear that continued strikes against Iran are going to help mobilize some kind of resistance to the regime. In fact, it may turn the Iranian people solidly against the United States and Israel being the aggressors. We will see. I hope there will be a negotiation. But quite frankly, I don't think that's a very likely outcome.
Harlan, in the run-up to all this, Iran has been very clear, stating again and again that if the U.S. were to attack Iran, U.S. assets in the region would become retaliatory targets. What is the risk now of U.S. assets, bases, embassies, other assets in the Middle East being targeted?
There's always a risk. Often Iran resorts to rhetoric because its capabilities have been completely eroded given what's happened to Hamas and Hezbollah. But still, acts of terrorism are very possible. It would seem to me that the more likely attack by Iran would be against the naval base in Bahrain, which is only across the Persian Gulf, and certainly a number of short-range missiles and drone attacks could exact a huge price on Bahrain and the U.S. Fifth Fleet. I think it's very, very unlikely they'll be able to attack the two carrier battle groups that are in the Persian Gulf because they'll be able to defend themselves and they're substantially far away. But certainly, the possibility of attack against American installations, either in terms of a large attack or one or two terrorist attacks, is very, very real, and I'm sure the Americans are prepared for that should it happen. And I suspect things like that will happen. To the degree that they will have effect on the United States remains to be seen. But supposing, for example, an American warship gets hit, gets sunk, suppose that Iran mines the Strait of Hormuz, and that leads to greater military action. So the escalation possibilities here are very, very great, and one does not necessarily see what the exit strategy is for the United States, for Iran, or the Israelis. And that leads to huge uncertainty. So at this stage, we hope that the escalation can be limited. But right now, I would worry a great deal to see what happens, simply because we don't know what Iran is going to do. They have a vote in all this. And we certainly don't know the damage that's been achieved by the United States, whether it's been comprehensive or not. And of course, the next steps that play out over the next week or days are going to be very important to see whether this can be confined or whether it goes to the next level.
Harlan, what kind of reaction have you been seeing from pro-Iranian groups, whether in the region or in different parts of the world, when it comes to the run-up of these U.S. strikes on Iran, and also when it comes to what they believe the U.S. capacity is right now to essentially go forward? They're involved in different conflicts. Do they believe that the U.S. would actually get itself into a quagmire in the region?
Hold on.
I'm not sure that the Iranian leadership believes that could happen, but the fact of the matter is that history has shown the United States has got itself into a number of quagmires. And so the problem here is that Iran could escalate and force the Americans to do something that could lead to a greater involvement, which is very possible. It seems to me that Iran will retaliate some way, shape, or form.
You know they're going to.
As I said, I don't think that there's an exit strategy that's particularly clear, because I don't think that the Iranians are going to negotiate from a position of weakness, having been attacked without any kind of retaliation. The so-called Persian personality will arise. It will arise, and Persians can be very tough-minded when the situation calls for it. So, at this particular stage, I'm reminded of somebody who's jumped off the Empire State Building and passing floor 44 asked how's it going. So far, so good. I hope that the outcome that befell that floor does not befall us. But the fact of the matter is, it's a very serious situation, and the possibility, I say the possibility.
Let's see what Twitter's saying.
Keadilan dan seumpamanya kenyataan awal daripada Malaysia sebelum daripada ini adalah kita mengutuk sekeras-kerasnya tindakan yang dilakukan oleh rejim haram Israel bila melakukan serangan-serangan besar ke atas Iran. Maka dalam hal ini saya kira Malaysia boleh memainkan peranan dan boleh juga untuk bersama-sama dengan.
TikTok might have some news, y'all. TikTok might have some news. Hold on. Might get some live footage from Iran or something.
Intelligence, all of our military, like who's paying him? Who's paying him?
You can't name me one intelligence.
He's literally ignoring all of his intelligence military. Can you name any of those people that said this was a good idea?
Who said it was a bad idea? I never said anyone said it was a good idea.
All of them.
Like who? Can you give me one? Yeah, I know you can. You're just speaking at everybody look it up. It was to speak out of your butt.
The lady, no.
You're not gonna get me any emotions.
Have it in front of me. Oh, you're so.
I'm not like an LGBTQ like college kid. Like you're not gonna be able to emotion bait me and then lie and then I try to somehow believe you. I don't do that, right? So it's gonna be a little bit harder
footage,
to lie to.
We got footage on TikTok. We got footage on TikTok. So yes, this is breaking news. If you guys just tuning in, Iran has been bombed by America. We are itching, if not already in World War III. And yes, this is going to be a scary situation. Scary situation, you guys. So buckle up. Please buckle up.
The most obvious place to do that, of course, is the American bases in the Middle East, but
buckle up. What we got? Independent media front line. I hear you. Everybody's covering this. Everybody's covering. And I love how our arrogance is on 3,000 right now. American citizens on Twitter. Hey, they feel like
we're not interested in giving up domestic enrichment of uranium. And Trump saw the way the first week and one day have been going for Israel in this war, where Israel has had total air dominance and has personnel on the ground and has been taking out Iranian Quds Force and military leaders. And Israel's basically been operating with impunity in Iran, and I think the United States under President Trump said,
"Hey, let's see what this Iranian
I want to give Trump
says.
immense credit for this. Trump is willing to do what no one else is willing to do.
Oh, fuck.
And we've seen it time and time again, whether that's calling out what's going on the southern border, even the northern border, whether that's the tariffs taking on the world, whether that's taking on China, whether that's taking on fentanyl, and now, first
Everybody
and foremost, taking on Iran. Trump and the IDF are doing the world's dirty work. And you'll notice one thing. It's easy to see what the Ayatollah has to say, but where are the allies of Iran at this point? Who's speaking out in the Ayatollah's favor? Is Saudi? Is Syria? Is Lebanon? Is anybody in the Middle East basically saying, hey, no, don't do this? Because here's what I know. Trump just did a full-on Middle East peace tour. Went to Saudi, went to the Emirates, went to Qatar, and he had these exact conversations. What will the world look like without a nuclear Iran?
We just seen Yemen, China, Russia explain that they had their back. These motherfuckers is living in a whole nother world, you guys.
To anyone who thinks that the United States and Israel are not completely on the same page, you're living in a fantasy land. So for all the people that said that Trump and Bibi had beef, well, maybe he was just playing you and so was Netanyahu. It's pretty clear the United States and Israel are on completely the same page. It's pretty clear that Trump, when he said a million different times on the campaign trail, Iran will not have a nuclear weapon.
That's the talking point, you guys.
So it turns out Iran,
that's the
all your
one
threats,
they're talking about.
Death to America, death to
we already
Israel,
said that on the campaign,
death to England, death to the infidel. Turns out all these threats, you know what's worse than threats, Ayatollah? Action. And what Trump did was take action, and I'm sure it was not easy to do. And he was commiserating, thinking, you thank God, whatever it was. One thing I know for sure, they called this Operation Rising Lion. One thing I completely will validate, Iran is nothing but a paper tiger at this point. All their proxies have been dethroned, declawed, decapitated, and now Iran, with zero defense in the sky, is looking like a sitting duck and a paper tiger at the hands of the greatest military that the human has ever seen in the United States of America. So for all the people that thought that America was not going to get involved, I guess we know where Trump stands.
Pat, can I say one thing really fast, though, Pat?
Yeah.
Adam, Bibi and Trump haven't been on the same page the entire time. Mike Waltz, the national security advisor, was fired because he was in cabinet meetings texting with Israel on a signal chat and got caught. That's why Trump was pissed off at him, and Trump didn't want to talk to him when he was on that tour.
You want to talk about Mike Waltz? I barely even know who that is, but what I can tell you at this point, it's pretty clear they're on the same page now, are they not?
Can I finish what I was saying?
Pretty clear they're on the same page now.
Changed. Adam, something changed.
Adam, shut up.
Trump went from, I want peace, I don't want no war, to let me take care of it, let me talk to everybody, to his national security advisor secretly talking with Israel and Bibi in a meeting. So you can't say that they were on the same page.
How you gonna say you don't even know
something
who he
has
is,
shifted,
so it don't matter.
and something has changed, Adam. You have to at least be able to play and think, look back. I get it. You're emotionally involved. You're Jewish. I understand.
You're Jewish,
But don't say that this whole time.
That has nothing to do with anything. You're speculating that.
It does because you
Okay,
can't.
so I'm going to ask you a question that I get asked all the time.
What's
your point?
Am I
What's
lying?
your point?
Hold on. What part of that didn't you get? You act like they've been on the same page the whole time. They haven't.
Right.
You said people were saying they weren't talking with each other. They weren't because he was undermining him. He was undermining him.
Well, it
And then all
turns
of a
out
sudden-
maybe you interpreted incorrectly because it seems as if now they're completely on the same page.
Yeah, so what
How do you not
happened?
understand that?
Adam, that makes me think, what happened? What would make somebody say,
Oh,
you
I
know
see
what?
what you're getting at. I see what you're getting at. AIPAC came in, and Bibi Netanyahu and the Israeli lobby who control the United States convinced Trump what to do.
Adam,
That's a good point,
I
Benny.
don't believe in that conspiracy. I don't believe every
Sorry, that was loud. Yeah, that's probably that is what he
congressman
said.
has an AIPAC handler. I don't believe that.
Miriam
I didn't
Adelson
say that.
gave Trump
No,
$100 million.
I was correcting you.
That's
all
exactly
I
what
said.
it is.
You said they.
So let me do this, Vinny, Adam. Let me do this, Vinny. Let me ask you a question with Waltz. So none of us know what it is to be a U.S. president. Is that fair?
100%.
None of us have access to the information that they have, right?
Yes.
Is it fair to
Look
say
at Patrick
that
Bet-David.
even with
He's
the
the
team
only
that he puts
Iranian.
together, he doesn't know who's who?
He's a self-hating
Meaning,
Iranian.
Some of the jobs you gave to a person could have been a favor. It could have been like, hey, if I get this, you get this. That's kind of how this works, right? There's conversations that happens in politics. And then very quickly you learn, no, that guy's not on our team. And you fire him, okay? Whether it's Waltz or when you say to Tulsi, which is what he said. Look, it's his job. He won this. He's the guy that put his life on the line. He gets to make these calls. And a lot of people are saying the fact that he doesn't have the right to call the war and, all that other stuff. And there is a response to it through Grok, ChatGPT, a lot of different stuff. Does the president have the right to do what he did? The president has authority as commander-in-chief to launch targeted strikes without congressional approval, particularly for urgent threats under Article 2, Section 2. Historical examples include Clinton's 1999 Serbia strikes, Obama's 2011 Libya campaign, and Trump's 2020 Soleimani strike. However, Article 1, Section 8 gives Congress war declaration power, implying oversight for major action, which is what Nancy May said 2 days ago when we were talking, saying they have to go through us, but no president in the past has ever used it. They don't even look at it. They just kind of go past it, right? The war power resolution requires congressional notification within 48 hours and limits engagement to 60 days without approval. Significant strikes like a hypothetical Iranian nuclear side attack, like risk escalation and legal scrutiny if prolonged. The issue remains contentious, balancing executive flexibility with congressional checks. You think Trump's going to go tell Congress, hey, we're about to attack, Iran's nuclear side? Hell no, he's not going to do that.
Nope.
You wouldn't do that. If you were president, you wouldn't do that. Now, here's the thing. Watch this. So, to me, the one thing that, Adam, I don't know if I'm with you on the fact that they're 100% on the same age.
I didn't say 100%. I said
I know. And I'm saying, I don't think they're 100% on the same page. But they're
not on the same page at all.
Came out and said the following. If you want to play the clip by Bibi, Rob, for them to see it, because I want to transition to the last story here, and I want to wrap it up. Rob, if you can pull up the clip of Bibi, this is the message he just gave 45 minutes ago, 50 minutes ago. Go for it.
Oh, really?
Congratulations, President Trump.
Your
bold decision to target Iran's nuclear facilities with the awesome and righteous might of the United States will change history. In Operation Rising Lion, Israel has done truly amazing things. But in tonight's action against Iran's nuclear facilities, America has been truly unsurpassed. It has done what no other country on earth could do. History will record that President Trump acted to deny the world's most dangerous regime the world's most dangerous weapons. His leadership today has created a pivot of history that can help lead the Middle East and beyond to a future of prosperity and peace.
Okay.
President Trump and I often say, peace through strength. First comes strength, then comes peace.
Really?
And tonight, President Trump and the United States acted with a lot of strength. President Trump.
So you can pause it right there. I get the point of the message. Let me tell you guys, if I'm opposition to Trump, you know what I say in a situation like this? Say I'm not a Trump guy. It's such an easy opening to say Netanyahu played the president.
Yep, he played him.
And got him to do the job.
Yep.
That U.S. was never going to have boots on the ground, et cetera, et cetera. Netanyahu tricked America to finish the job that he started but knew he couldn't finish.
Yep.
And then in this setting, he's saying to the world, oh my God, let me edify the president. The president did this. I didn't do this.
I didn't do it.
This.
They're gonna do. Yep, that's what they did the other day.
All this strength and all that other stuff. By the way, those guys who say that, they can make that argument, and then the audience can go decipher and
They're gonna
process.
pull
and say,
back like, nah, that wasn't us. We don't even have those kind of weapons.
That's totally fine. The other part could also be the fact that, U.S., if this thing ends up being good, if to the people that believe Iran is the main reason for the chaos in the Middle East, because only two nations have ever said death upon America, North Korea in 1954 and Iran, when they said death upon America, do you really want
North Korea
Iran
have nukes
to continue having the power? Now let's talk about Iran. What happens to Iran next? What is the next move for Iran?
North Korea chanted death to America.
Because everybody was like, well, this is a great opportunity for Reza Pahlavi. I've had him on the podcast twice. I'm actually a fan of his. I think he's a very nice guy. I think he wants to make his mother proud. I think he wants to make his father, who was in exile 45, 46 years ago, I think he feels he wants to make him proud. He just passed the age of his father that he passed I asked him the question, does it make you feel weird that you are officially older than your dad was when he died? He says, I'm not going to lie to you. When this happened a couple of years ago, I was. But he had an opportunity to give a definite answer. If this were to happen, I want the entire audience watching this. Tell me how definite this answer is. When he was asked yesterday, if this were to happen, are you ready to go back? Rob, if you got this clip, I send it to you. Please play this clip, because I have a message for Reza Pahlavi and his people. And trust me, they're not going to be happy with what I have to say, and I'm going to get a lot of weird messages from people. But the only way I know how to go is
PBV.
We don't take money from anyone. We don't have Qatar money. We don't have Israel money. We don't have private equity money. The only thing I sold is my insurance company. Everything we do by
he about to lose some fans. He about to say something.
I've not taken a single penny off the table since the day we started Vitamin in 2013. I don't take money off the table. Everything has been reinvested back into it, 100% of it. The reason why we can talk like this, because nobody tells us what to say. We talk. And by the way, you know what I love about what happened? I'm on 2 threads last week on X. One thread is saying, I can't believe Pat turned his back against Israel. On another thread, they said, Pat is bought and owned by, what do you call it? What do they call it? What's the word when they say Zionist, AIPAC, all this other stuff, right?
Yep.
And then we have a show called Her Take. And Anna Kasparian, who is not pro-Israel at the highest level, can come and represent one of our shows for the 7th time now, go up against Adam, and we are comfortable with that conversation. We are comfortable with that conversation. If you don't respect that, it's not my problem. We're comfortable with that conversation. Rob, I don't know what you're putting up here right now because I'm not going here, so I don't know what you just put up, Rob. Can you tell me what this was put up for?
Right.
My apologies, sir. I'm loading something up.
Okay. Yeah, so we are very comfortable with us entertaining these types of conversations.
Who's
I'm very comfortable with Adam and Benny going back and forth and having these types of discussions. But watch this clip here. Here's Reza Pahlavi.
Adam threw a tampon at...
I believe it's CNN or Fox. I don't know which one it is, Rob. He's being asked, if this were to happen, it's Fox. Are you ready to go back to Iran? And listen to his answer. Go for it.
You have said that you don't seek power, but you are ready to fulfill a duty if called upon. If the people supported or asked you to return as Shah for a period of time during transition, would you be open to that option?
I don't think I need a title to perform as a transitional leader.
Go back again, Rob.
Are looking for me
go
to
back 10 seconds, please. All he has to say is yes or no. Go ahead.
Open to that option.
I don't think I need a title to perform as a transitional leader. I think the reason people are looking for me to play that role is because of their confidence in me, their trust in me, and I think to a great extent the track record that I've demonstrated in the past 44 years since I began. And that trust in me allows me to play that national leader role.
This is the American plan.
To be the element that assembles people together on a common agenda.
What does that
knowing
mean?
That we might differ in opinion, but we are committed to the
What does that mean? That's all I want to know. What does that mean? From Tom, if you just heard that, I got a bunch of things to cover here as well. If you just heard that, how do you process what he just said? Brandon, the two of you. What do you think he just said?
Scared, deflecting. I don't know why. It's like against every impulse I would think somebody would have is to avenge their father, to save their country that's being held captive. So I don't get it.
Because I know Tom.
I would have led with my heart, Pat. I would have if I was JFK Jr. still alive, and you asked me that question, I'm going to be leading with my heart. You undermined my dad. You did this. I would have called out the enemies and saying, we have been waiting for this moment. The people have been waiting over it. Yes, I'm coming back. I would have led with my heart and my passion and the legacy that's in my blood. I couldn't not do it that way.
Mm-hmm. Vinny.
Pat, there's a quote, and I want to read this, Pat, real quick. A great man doesn't seek to lead. He is called to it, and he answers. Okay? He's been called for how many 40-some years?
Nope,
and
he hasn't.
He's not answering. I'm sorry to be that guy. He said I've been doing this for 40-some years.
Soleimani was called.
I don't see nothing, and nothing has happened. These
Soleimani was called.
These people are begging. They are literally dying for a freaking leader, and you can't sit on the sideline in this game. And I'm sorry.
Think about this. They are falling head over heels over one guy. One guy. There is 91 million people in Iran. You don't have another one that have the same views as him who can take the throne or share your views and become a leader? No. Because it's all a fucking lie. The Iranians don't want him over there. They don't want us to America their Iran. They don't. Simple as that. And it's dumbasses like here, Vinny and Patrick Bet-David and all of them on Fox that feel like you're the one that we want over there. Why don't you just go? He's gonna get killed if he goes, just like his daddy was.
It needs definitive leadership.
Right. Damn right, Tom.
So, you know, the challenge here, Adam, you want to say something? Go for it.
Yeah, I actually agree with Vinny for once wholeheartedly. He is not the guy. You know how you see sometimes you see in the NBA when a guy hits a big shot and they yell, "I'm him, I'm him, I'm that dude." He ain't that dude. Yeah. He's just not. Yep. He's not born for this. He's not ready for this. This leads me to, I think, maybe what Rob was trying to show.
Why y'all forcing it on him then? That was his daddy. That ain't him.
On the Capitol lawn, basically silent protest on behalf of Iran. And the common theme was free Iran. And all they had was almost makeshift graves of all the people that have died at the hands of not only the Ayatollah, but apparently the Shah. The guy said it was 90% people that died at the hands of the Ayatollah.
Wow.
What I asked him was, this is in the middle of Washington, D.C. I was going to send you this. I saw this today, PBD. There's actually there's more videos, Rob. But what I did was I speak to the gentleman who was running the whole thing. He was part of the Mujahideen movement in Iran. I guess they're the number one sort of dissenters against
it's propaganda.
They're the number one dissenters against the Ayatollah. And I asked him point blank, I said, "What are you looking for?" He goes, "We want to free Iran." I said, "Would you be happy with United States
so y'all get the
or
picture.
Israel?"
That's what these right-wingers.
Stop. Don't get a HELOC
even
until you know about
self-hating people like PBD, who's Iranian, who was probably exiled his damn self, trying to be a fake American. That's them feeling like this was a good thing. And they're trying to make excuses that the country isn't divided on this situation, when we clearly are. We clearly are. Everybody isn't on board with this. Everybody didn't agree to this. We clearly are divided.
Allowed to open up. Now, workplaces are going to remain closed. Only essential workers are allowed to go in, and people are told to stay close to shelters.
Haley, Israel is dealing with Gaza and also attacks from Yemen, but these attacks this week from Iran have done a lot of damage there. How are people in Israel dealing with all of this?
What we've seen here this week is completely different when I speak to people, and also in my experience in this country, than the other kinds of attacks from Gaza, for example. Those are rockets. Israel's missile defense system, Iron Dome, is very good at intercepting those. And there's a whole system of shelters throughout the country that give people a great deal of comfort, even when they are under rocket attack. They provide very good protection for those kinds of projectiles. Ballistic missiles are a whole different kettle of fish, so to speak. They're huge, and their impacts are huge, and they're a new challenge for Israel's missile defense system. We've seen some make it through, and it's rattled people. People have said that they feel a sense of insecurity that I haven't heard from people in any other part of this war since I've been covering it, certainly since October 7th. The other thing to think about, too, is Americans who are in the region. We heard yesterday that the U.S. Embassy started evacuating Americans, but there are a number of American citizens here who are either dual citizens, who are on trips, who are visiting family, who have been really frantic to try to get out. Flights have been canceled, and they've been stuck, and they will be waking up to this news and probably worried about what that means for them and their hopes of returning home anytime soon.
And even Americans here are feeling a sense of insecurity as well. Haley Ott, thank you with that response.
Here we go. 20 seconds
Right
ago.
now, we're going to turn to CBS News senior national security correspondent Charlie D'Agata, joining us now from the Pentagon. Thanks for.
20 seconds ago, Iran military. The Islamic Republic of Iran nuclear program remains fully intact. The pig man is lying yet again. Well, who do y'all think is lying? This is the big ass fucking game, y'all. This is one big ass fucking game, y'all. Oh man. Wow. So if Trump is lying, what do we do? What do we do? Let's see. Let's come.
40,000 U.S. forces spread throughout the Middle East. Before, when, as a matter of fact, when President Trump
4 minutes ago,
essentially
the political deputy of
or at least
Iran,
killed Hassan
Iranian
Soleimani, who at that
national
time was
TV,
in charge of
speaking live
the
on
general
air.
in charge of Iranian forces.
We got action.
U.S. forces in Iraq and other places came under attack. So we know for a fact, because we've been asking those questions, whether or not the United States has been preparing force protection for an Iranian retaliation.
2 hours ago.
And
the guy
has
is
to be
supposed
said,
to be dead.
I don't know what kind of language is coming out of Tehran.
You don't know what kind of language? Let's hear. Let's hear what kind of language coming out of Tehran.
میدان بشه حدود نظامی در این میدان رو مانه سلمه جبرین اسیر غارت بدون تردید.
Hold on. Is this old?
آمریکایی ها
Americans who move
با سیاست های این منطقه آشنا هستند میدانند که ورود آمریکا در این قضیه
The U.S. entering in this matter war is 100% to its own detriment. The damage will suffer will be far greater than any harm that Iran may encounter. The harm the U.S. will suffer if they enter this conflict militarily will definitely be irreparable.
آمریکایی ها اونهایی که
That's from Ayatollah himself.
با سیاست های این منطقه آشنا هستند میدانند که ورود
like a little bastards tapped out in 10 days. The great Satan step into their fire, into the fire. Come on. All right, well, this is about to get real fucking bad, you guys. And I hope you guys are prepared. Let's see what the IDF bragging about. And we're gonna I'm nervous that something might happen right now. I'm nervous that something already happened and they're not telling us. I am trying to make sure that we are up to date on everything. Because we are not going to be told everything. See, let's see what the Middle East in general got to say. Because, hold on. Your eyes on the ground, independent media, Middle East, North Africa, yada, yada, yada. Let's hit the latest. Let's see what's going on right now. And this is why we hate the U.S. and American people. A country from the other side of the world can't mind its own business, but keep fucking around, annoying even every single country in the Middle East. I know they keep fucking annoying every one of them. This is crazy. This is crazy, you guys. Let's see if we can get some footage. Oh, sorry. No. Put that back. Go back. Back. Hold on. Okay. Do we have any footage? Iranian state media declared every American citizen or military personnel in the region is now a target. Oh, stating, "You started it, we will end it." A broadcast even displayed maps showing U.S. military and installations across the Middle East. Where's the video? We got the video? We ain't got the video? Because you know, our media, this is what our media is not going to show us. It's not going to show us, y'all. You think our men in the Middle East are being touched? I don't think so. We all know what happened if a singular American soldier dies over here. Okay. Well, and we're going to keep updating ourselves because I think this is a crazy time to be alive. I was a baby. I wouldn't say a baby, but I was a kid during the Iraq War. And I remember, you know, people complaining about different things, different narratives. Oil, weapons of mass destruction, all type of shit, right? This one, they can't hide it. Nope. We know this one is biblical. This one is because Israel started it. Israel wanted this war, and they knew they couldn't do it by themselves. So they had us. Okay, Iranian state media, state TV is now displaying maps of U.S. military base in the Middle East. Let's see. Here we go, right here.
جایی در منطقه غرب آسیا نداره. آقای رئیس جمهور آمریکا شما شروع کردید و ما تمامش خواهیم کرد. من هدف مشروع ایران هستم. آمریکا با این اقدامی که انجام داد علیه ایران و حریم هوایی ایران را شکست و جنایت علیه ایران انجام داد دیگه جا.
Thank you, Mr. President, for your strength. Oh my God. Uh-oh. Be careful. We better get all our troops up out of there. Trump is now bombing Iran. Yeah, we know that. Come on, let's see if we get some breaking news, y'all. We want to see some breaking news. Something we don't know already. Because I don't know if you guys have family in the military, kids enlisted or whatever. But this is crazy. They're going to get a response from Iran, and they're going to get in their feelings, and then they're going to draft our babies. Or they're going to keep trying to do this air defense system until it's depleted, and then they're going to try to send in bodies. Boots on the ground. And, yeah, look at the memes. The memes are quick, huh? They're fast. They're coming out with them. So we dropped 3 of them. We drop bombs on multiple sites. I don't know how many bombs we dropped, but we drop bombs on multiple sites. In 2024, you said the Biden-Harris regime was too weak to prevent war in the Middle East. And a vote for Trump. Oh, hold on. Let me read his tweet first before we get to your tweet. A vote for Trump is a vote for peace. Now we're at war with Iran. Eat your words, you lying sack of shit, or you lying shit bag. The Biden-Harris regime was too weak to prevent war in the Middle East. Now they're so riddled with Israel haters that they're leaking top security military intelligence in order to help Iran. The people attacking Trump as dangerous have always been the worst liars of all. A vote for Trump is a vote for peace and security. A vote for Harris is a vote for war, chaos, and outrage. That's what Charlie Kirk said in 2024. Eat your words, you shitbag. You lying shitbag. We've been at war with Iran for 40 years. Shut up, nigga. No, we haven't. I'm telling you, these bums is weird, bro. This fantasy they have over greater Israel, greater America, greater.
It's time for 60 Minutes.
It's saddening. It's saddening that we have to deal with this as taxpayers. This is our money.
Chief spokesman of the Pentagon, Sean Parnell. Secretary Hegseth has not been in the Pentagon briefing room to take questions from reporters, so this will actually be our first time getting the opportunity to ask him some questions.
Okay, I just wanted to note that point because obviously we get near daily White House press briefings, we get near daily State Department briefings. The Pentagon is, somewhat different. And you correct me if I'm wrong here, you cover the Pentagon each and every day. That is unusual and unorthodox compared with previous presidential administrations.
You ain't getting no answers out of them?
It is. The current administration has taken a very different tact as it relates to how it tries to relay information to the American people.
Wow.
Okay, Mike, always glad to have
Look
you
at
on.
how stressed out you
know
look.
it's
Tell
late
the
there
truth, bro.
in Washington, and I'm sure we'll be speaking in the next couple of days. Thanks so much, Mike.
Thank you.
Okay, in the meantime here, we are approaching a new hour. It's almost 8 o'clock here on the West Coast, almost 11 p.m. there in Washington. And so at the top of the hour, we're going to take the opportunity to let you listen to the very brief statement President Trump made there in the White House. Standing behind him, of course, was the vice president.
We heard it.
So Elon Musk bought one of these. How did that go down?
Sorry, actually. Hold on real quick, y'all. We're going to refresh all of this because these motherfuckers is, it's crazy. It's crazy. They're talking like it was a success, right? Nobody could even assess the damage. We don't even know if the nuclear site is damaged or if they even moved their shit. What we do know is America did use its weaponry to invade a sovereign nation who has now said that all of our military bases in the region are legitimate targets. Their state media is now posting maps of where our military is located at. And Bibi Netanyahu is basically congratulating Trump with some weird way of saying America did this, not Israel. So that's just to catch you up on, oh shit, what did I do? What happened? And I feel like this is about to get worse. I personally feel like this is about to get real bad. And there's nothing we can do about it. What would you do? Let me ask that. What would you do if you were drafted or your children were drafted? Would you go? Would you advise them to go? Or would you revolt and go to jail? How long would... let me see. How long is that sentence? That's a good question. Let me see. If you dodge the draft, how long of a jail sentence will you get? 5 years in jail and a $250,000 fine. Huh. Well, that's what y'all up against right there. 5 years in jail or $250,000 fine. What y'all think? What would you do? Would you take the 5 years and the $250,000, or would you go and fight for Trump? Would you go fight for Trump is the question. Hold on real quick. Let's try to get something going here because they're trying to make it seem like the dust is settling. It's all quiet. Yada, yada. I don't believe it. I think they're franticing. They're panicking. They already pulled out all of their troops. We pulled out all of our troops in the Middle East. But it's eerie quiet. It is real quiet. And here's some footage over Israel. Let's see what this is. Hold on real quick. We got some live. That building is still sitting there, leaning. I don't know why they didn't tear it down yet. It looked like a hazard. So let's see if Iran is getting ready to respond. Let's see if they respond with some kind of hold on. With some kind of massive attack that makes America say, "How dare they? How dare they?" Oh, hold on. What happened? Something happened. Let's see what Charlie has to say, because Charlie is a big fan. Charlie's a big fan of Donald Trump, and he did backtrack his statement. He did, and then he had said that he wasn't with it, and then backtracked.
Power blinds. You can hit power plants. You can hit dams. You can hit tanks. You can hit infantry. You can hit missile launchers.
Talking about.
But after a while, you just start to run out, and okay, it's a country of 93 million people, and you don't have perfect knowledge of everything. You don't have the ability to hit everything. And after a while, you just have to admit, are you actually able to bomb this country until they surrender? Are you able to bomb them until their government gets overthrown? There's not a great track record on that. Even with like Saddam Hussein, we did shock and awe, but to knock him out of power, we had to send 150,000 troops into that country.
Right.
And you're going to hear people who claim we can keep this entirely limited to an air war and achieve all of our objectives. And if our objective is just damage their nuclear program, maybe we can do that. But if you allow these people to get their hooks in where they say, well, our goal needs to be regime change because that's the only way we stop their nuclear program, or because they've hit U.S. troops and so we need to retaliate and that's the only lever we have, I'm not sure you can get that done with only planes dropping bombs. And that's how you end up with, God forbid, U.S. troops end up in Tehran.
And there is kind of this like modern cope that like we're able to just do it with air power.
Yeah,
right.
It's the thought of, oh, you can just fly planes and they can't hit us and no one gets shot down and no one dies.
There's no casualties, and it's kind of a fiction of the modern military pedestrian mind. So I want to read a email here. This is by no means the majority, but I would say a lot of younger people are emailing us something similar. Charlie, I supported Donald Trump and voted for him. I will be voting for anyone that is explicitly anti-Israel next election. So, Jack, I know this is not the primary thing on people's mind, but what has the last week done, in your opinion, for the Israel advocacy, or the people have the belief pro or against? Has it improved people's opinion of Israel? Has it decreased people's opinion of Israel? Jack Posobiec.
Well, Charlie, I would say it depends on, it cuts on age lines the same way we've seen with a number of these things. For the older generation, I think it's something where they're generally pro-Israel. Then it cuts,
the
so
younger
baby
generation
boomers,
is not pro-Israel.
and Gen X writ large. Then you cut down to millennials, that's kind of 50-50, and Gen Y. But for Gen Z in particular, they've shifted in a big way. I saw one poll from last week, over 50% anti-Israel, and I think that's going to continue moving in that direction, because Gen Z particularly views Israel as the aggressor in many of these cases. Now, again, you can argue about that. I personally have, my own thoughts on that, but that's how it's viewed. I'm just saying that's the observation of Gen Z. And so as such, they say, why does all this have to happen right now? They have serious questions about the intelligence. They have serious questions about what's really going on.
True.
And they go on TikTok and they look at videos coming out of Gaza every day of dead kids. Now they see bombing in Iran and they say, what is this? Why isn't anyone coming in to do something to help us? Why isn't anyone doing anything to fix the economy in the United States, to fix the health situation in the United States, to fix housing, to fix the fix housing without having to sell off all?
And
of our
these
public
kids are the
land,
future
the
voters.
Conversation we were having
Remember
the other
that.
day,
That's
at
the
least behind
future.
scene. And
the kids that are critical
all the time,
about
on the program.
our support for Israel, those are the ones that are going to be our future leaders, senators, mayors, presidents. And you are making Israel I wouldn't say an enemy, but something to criticize, to try to stray away from. And our alliance could be at jeopardy because, Gen Z and all of them, they not. You can't try to indoctrinate them and say, "Oh no, the Bible says that we got to protect Israel at all costs." No, it's not gonna work. So try something new, but it don't look like they are all fully on this agreements. It look like the MAGA movement is divided. They all look stressed out that this happened, and now Iran just declared that all American personnel, military alike, are targets.
You're actually hearing what another person's interests are and another person's side is. And so if you're trying to meet Gen Z where they are, then actually listen to them and don't tell them how they should think. Listen to what they think and why. Find out what the context is. Find out what their situation is, because they are a generation, again, and I'm just going to go back to the context here. One of their earliest memories, if they even have a memory of it, is 9/11. And then since then, they've been in a country that's been perpetually at war. And George W. Bush got, obviously escalated wars. Barack Obama was elected saying that he was going to end wars. He did not. He escalated wars. Then you had President Trump, first term, said, worked very hard to get us out of the Middle East. And then Joe Biden comes in and boom, we have 10/7, we have the Ukraine war launch off. And so a lot of Gen Z is saying, is someone just going to stop these wars and do something for us? And unfortunately, they get these lectures and they get these talking points and they don't have anyone who listens.
So, Blake, can you go through some of the super chats and some of the people that have paid really quick?
Of course. Again, thank you to everyone who's been donating. If we don't get to yours, we're still extremely grateful. Master Doc donated £5, British pounds. Please, America, stand with us. We Israelis really need this. We can't do this without you guys. Please think of our people. I'm not sure if that one might be sarcastic or not. Let's see. Jackson donated $5. Charlie, my friend, Jack Lyles, and I love your content and watch all your videos on YouTube. Excited to be a new member. Thank you very much for joining. Alex Evans donated $5. What if we rebuild the enrichment sites into Buc-ee's and Costco locations? Not until we get a Buc-ee's here in Phoenix.
We are getting one.
Buc-ee's is taking
over the world.
Buc-ee's is amazing. I feel like if you go to Buc-ee's, you come away thinking America can defeat everyone in the world because no one else has anything like that. It is incredible. Let's see. Jose Lopez donated $10. He wrote, Numbers 24:9, trusting God. He never backs down on his promises. He has promised blessings to those who bless Israel. God bless America, Trump, and the U.S. Armed Forces. Thank you very much. Noiselike donated $20. He said, is it possible that Trump might want to support Muslim soon? That would be good. No. I would disagree. I would prefer that we not support Islam. But
why we can't? No, he said Muslims.
If Islam wants to stop waging war on the United States, the radicals, I would certainly be grateful. Mr. Magic 211 donated $5. The real strategic win here is the clear message to China. Trump won't hesitate to act if they make a move on Taiwan. That's definitely something that's in the back of many people's minds. Jesus.
Yep. Hold on. I don't really like this feed anyway, but I do want to go back to...
This is the way donated $2, and he says, run for president, Charlie. I love you. Well, hopefully not in that way.
Please don't.
Mr. Darkside donated $20. Revelation 3:9. Behold, Charlie. I will... Oh, okay. No, we're not going to read that one. Guys, you don't need to do that's... Yeah, no. Come on, guys. Let's see. I like this one. Eric Norris, $2. I've seen more Iranians okay with this than Americans. I've seen people say this, but again, I want to caution people. The Iranians are not necessarily representative of Iran writ large. If they're people who know English, if they're people in America, that's not the same as your ordinary rural Iranian.
So I wanted to say really quick, we're live here on Real America's Voice, according to our team, which is great. Hello, everybody that is just watching. You probably already heard the news from, obviously, the United States has bombed Iran. I want to hear from you guys, freedom@charliekirk.com. Do you support this? Are you in favor? What are your concerns?
No, we don't support this, Charlie. Shut up.
آمریکا با این اقدامی که انجام داد علیه ایران و حریم هوایی ایران را شکست و جنایت علیه ایران انجام داد دیگه جایی در منطقه غرب.
Let's see what else we got from Iranian State TV live. Let's do some live. Nope, that's Fox. Hold on. Hold on. I want to see if we can get some actual footage.
She said
from
it's
Iran.
important that the UF6, which is uranium hexafluoride, be accounted for and eventually removed. Isfahan is where Iran also manufactured centrifuges.
So could it be that Isfahan was actually more important than Fordow?
Yeah.
So it appears that what was happening in Isfahan was that you were having the enrichment done at the secret facility in Fordow, where the most advanced centrifuges were developed or were running. And then that material was taken out of Fordow and being stored in Isfahan. So you have production in Fordow, you have storage and maintenance and possibly conversion to, putting onto a warhead, that type of development happening in Isfahan. So two different facilities doing two different things. Now, whether or not you can destroy Isfahan, one can with the proper munitions, basically cripple access to it. So maybe the facility still stands, maybe the tunnels, maybe bunkers, maybe a huge size, depots, maybe halls, whatever facilities are still intact, but access to them, which requires, a tunnel entrance above ground, those can be crippled. Those can be eliminated or denied or compromised. You can re-access them, you can rebuild them, but there'll be satellites watching all of this happen to see if there's any more activity there. So again, we don't know for certain until we have either visual satellite intelligence or on-the-ground human intelligence verifying one way or the other. This is all speculation.
So obviously, within 2 weeks didn't mean a full 2 weeks. It meant within 2 days. So I thought that was somewhat telling and prescient, since we were talking about, kind of parsing the language of, what did the president mean saying he needed 2 weeks' time to think. Remember, the Wall Street Journal earlier this week had reported that he had already made up his mind and he was...
Yeah, hold on, let's get a better feed. Did you hear what the fuck he just said? I think I heard explosions over here. But if you heard what he just said, he kind of confirmed what that IDF post said. Or not the IDF, the Iranian military said. We moved all of our equipment, uranium, months ago. So, Trump, your bombs, you're late. You're late. Hold on. And if that's the case, he says, what if they are putting it on the end of a warhead right now to send it to Israel? Hold on, where is it at? Hold on, I want news now. I want to see what y'all saying. Y'all got all the fear mongering going on. That's crazy. That's kind of what I said verbatim. They can use it to attack. If it's not there, and if they using Trump to attack them just to see if he's stupid enough to do it, they might be loading a warhead right now to send to Israel with a nuke on it. Not no regular old Joe. All right, let's see. Let's see if we got better footage.
Then, all for naught, it didn't go anywhere here. Can you envision some type of meeting or summit between U.S. officials, high-ranking, not Steve Witkoff, but the Secretary of Defense, Secretary of State, President himself, with Iranian officials? Is that on the table, you think, or no, after this?
So if it's one thing that officials of any high rank, especially president or cabinet level secretary, doesn't want to do, is that he or she doesn't want to engage in a meeting or a summit where they know ahead of time a deal is unlikely. It looks bad for them. And so in this instance, we know where Iran's red lines were. They haven't signaled otherwise. Their red lines have been, they insist on maintaining a peaceful enrichment program, and that they were not going to compromise on, unless they indicated through back channels they were willing to yield on that. And to do so would be a 180, and they'd have to account for that with their own public. It's difficult to see why or how those high-level officials would meet. Now, it's tempting, and I think the offer from the president was genuine. but I'm not sure if at the end of the day it would have materialized for other reasons, and that being one of them. I simply don't see a deal under the conditions that each side wanted happening.
All right, Benjamin Rad, always good to see you, and thank you so much for providing such great insight, especially this late at night. Benjamin, we'll talk soon.
Thank you.
Okay, in the meantime here, I think it's safe to kind of reset, catch our breath as we continue this breaking news coverage. I'm Andrew Kraft. Thank you for being with us. Thank you to my colleague, Austin Westfall. He was on when it happened, and we're continuing right through this momentous, historic occasion there, not only here, stateside, but also in the Middle East here. We have live pictures there on Capitol Hill.
Let's reset and catch our breath. Everybody, it's a lot of information coming out.
The risk of dragging the entire escalation, which is already in an unprecedented level,
right
to
now
the
in
next
Tehran,
level, in which there is a possibility for a regional all-out war scenario that is a very dangerous scenario, according to Iranian officials. And Iranians are saying that we haven't prepared for this. We talked to one of military officials, security officials. He said that we haven't prepared for it in the last 10 years, and we are going to have no problem with prolonged war, according to this military official who told us about that possibility.
For the last 10
the
years.
thing is that Iranians are prepared for that, but speaking of the reaction, they're saying that any American asset in the region is going to be a potential retaliatory target when it comes to Iranian response. But now that red line is crossed. American intervention, something Iranians were warning about, is there as a part of reality on the ground.
That's their red line.
Still,
American
we have to keep waiting to see how Iran is going to formulate its response.
Okay, Tawhid, we will of course be checking in with you throughout the morning here when we get more reaction from Iran. Tawhid Asadi in Tehran there. Tawhid reminding us that the Iranian Atomic Agency has said there is no sign of contamination and no danger for the people living in the area of the 3 sites that were attacked by the United States, those 3 sites being Natanz, Isfahan, and Fordo. And we're also hearing from regional nuclear agencies, the Saudi Nuclear and Radiological Regulatory Commission, saying no radioactive effects were detected on the environment of the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia and the Arab Gulf states as a result of the U.S. military targeting Iranian nuclear facilities earlier today. Now, just before President Trump delivered his address, the Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu issued a pre-recorded video statement on the U.S. strikes on Iran. He said history will record the U.S. acted to deny Iran the most dangerous of weapons. Take a listen.
Congratulations, President Trump. Your bold decision to target Iran's nuclear facilities with the awesome and righteous might of the United States will change history. In Operation Rising Lion, Israel has done truly amazing things. But in tonight's action against Iran's nuclear facilities, America has been truly unsurpassed. It has done what no other country on earth could do. History will record that President Trump acted to deny the world's most dangerous regime the world's most dangerous weapons. His leadership today has created a pivot of history that can help lead the Middle East and beyond to a future of prosperity and peace. President Trump and I often say, peace through strength. First comes strength,
you and Trump fucked
and
up.
Comes peace.
So what time is it? I think it's like
and tonight, President Trump and the United
3:30,
States
4:30 in the morning?
acted with a lot of strength.
When
President
Iran?
Trump, I thank you.
About
The
to wake
people of
up.
Israel thank you. The forces of civilization thank you. God bless America. God bless Israel. And may God bless our unshakable alliance, our unbreakable faith.
For more on this, let's bring in Hamda Salhout, who joins us from Jordan's capital, Amman. So the U.S. intervention is what Prime Minister Netanyahu had wanted all along, direct U.S. involvement in Israel's conflict with Iran. Talk to us more about what he said and the reaction from Israel.
Well, the Israeli prime minister actually released two statements. One of those statements just around 30 minutes ago in Hebrew, addressing the citizens of Israel, saying that on June 13th, Netanyahu promised that he would destroy Iran's nuclear program and capabilities, and saying that he kept that promise and that moving forward, Israel is going to continue with their attacks on Iran until they feel they have accomplished all of their goals since they started this all 10 days ago. But the reaction from Israel, keep in mind it's around 6:30 a.m. local time, but the reaction that has come out has been in support of this. Remember, it's what the Israelis had been wanting all along. There were private conversations happening behind the scenes since before this had even taken place, saying that the Israelis wanted American assistance in striking the Fordo nuclear facility in particular, because no Israeli weaponry could reach it because it's so far underground. So now that the Americans have responded and rather have conducted strikes of their own, the region is bracing for what sort of response there is going to be from the Iranians. Israel has now closed its airspace once again because in fear of any sort of retaliation from Iran. But nonetheless, the Israeli prime minister has been thanking President Trump, saying that this was a success.
What are Israel's objectives in this war with Iran? And do these U.S. strikes constitute, Hamda, an achievement in any way for Israel, where we could see the Israelis now back off and end their military operation against Iran?
Well, according to Israeli officials who've spoken to media this morning, they say that the attacks on Iran will certainly continue, that they are in no way finished, because they say that it's not only the nuclear facilities and nuclear capabilities that they were after, that's what they wanted to destroy, but they also want to destroy all of the ballistic missile capabilities, all of the drone capabilities, anything militarily now that the Iranians have, because they had retaliated and fired back at Israel after those initial attacks on June 13th. That's what they want to destroy. The military has said that this is going to be a prolonged campaign and that people in Israel should brace themselves for more attacks. And that was nearly 2 days ago. But the Israelis say that this was one of their big goals, was to eliminate Iran's nuclear capabilities. And Netanyahu says that that has now been accomplished. That has also been echoed by U.S. President Donald Trump. But again, there's a lot of fear as to what escalation this can cause in the region, because this is not just the Israelis now, this is the Americans getting involved. There are other regional actors who could potentially get dragged into this as well. So now Israel is looking to see what they are going to do next. There have been new guidelines from Homefront Command that have been issued inside of Israel. There have already been guidelines about limiting gatherings, limiting any sort of large crowds outside. And now they've closed schools. They have closed most workplaces. Only essential workers are allowed to leave. They're asking people to stay in safe rooms. There are a lot of people in Israel who have decided to live in these makeshift underground sort of shelters in mall parking.
Question is insane.
Wait, who is that?
And so, I'll say, I can share with Chris. I'll send a screenshot. Yeah, no, like legitimately, Chris and I have been talking about this for days now. This individual is fucking.
I don't know about these TikTokers. Nor do I care. There's something I wanted. Hold on, real quick. We're gonna double check something real quick. See if we got any updates, because we're gonna be lied to or deceived 6 minutes ago. All right. Hold on, turn it down. I want to see what this says. IRNA correspondent report, Fordo region. Local residents in the vicinity of Fordo reported no indication. I'm sorry, I can't see that. Move that. No indication of major explosion. Conditions in the area remain calm and routine. Official experts are expected to release further details as the investigation progresses. Well, okay. Not so much of an explosion. What do you mean? It ain't go down. Is that what you're saying? That America hit, but it wasn't that bad, or America didn't hit, or what are you saying? What is, bro? How is the military on both sides, Iran and Israel, just trolling us? Like, I feel like they're trolling us. We are being trolled, y'all. This is just hilarious.
Israel, who have been killed, hundreds of others injured, and not to mention the damage and destruction that has been done to areas in the north and the south and in the central part of the country, like Tel Aviv.
Thank you, Hamda, for that. Hamda Salhout
they
in
said
Amman,
it right
Jordan,
now.
for us with the latest
Iran's
reaction
Atomic Energy
from
Organization
Israel.
says no signs of
Now let's
contamination.
look at how President Trump announced those U.S. strikes on Truth
All right.
Social just before midnight GMT.
If there's no contamination, then that
"We have
means they might be
completed our
right.
very
They
successful
probably
attack on the
moved their shit months ago, knowing that Israel's getting ready to strike with America, and we just wasted how much money, how many bombs, and how much hate did we build for something that didn't even work? No. Let's see what the outcome gonna be. I'll be right here with some popcorn. I do want some popcorn.
Let's bring in now Sina Azodi, an assistant professor of Middle East politics at George Washington University, who focuses on Iranian foreign policy. His live from Washington. Thank you so much for being with us on Al Jazeera, Sina. Your thoughts first, and you know, on what's happened. How do you view this U.S. involvement in the Israel-Iran conflict and the U.S. president's justification for entering the war?
Well, first of all, let me just say that this makes Iran the only country in the world that has been targeted by two nuclear weapon states at the same time. We also have to keep in mind that the U.S. president's decision, according to his own Republican supporters, was an unconstitutional decision to attack the country. It also violates the NPT, and I think that it fundamentally changes the U.S.-Iranian relations for the years to come. It could potentially have an impact on the non-proliferation regime in the long term. And what I mean by that is that Iranians could finally come to the conclusion that remaining in the NPT no longer serves their interests, and become, after North Korea, become the second country that leave the non-proliferation regime.
Iran, prior to this attack by the United States, had already warned against any U.S. intervention in the conflict. It had threatened that it would retaliate. What are Iran's options right now after what's happened today? Will it pursue a measured counterstrike, or are you seeing a broader escalation here?
Well, based on Iran's behavior in the past, I think we should expect a response, a counterattack by Iran with loudest political message.
Why wouldn't they respond?
Minimum potential casualties. Because if there are potential casualties, American casualties, the U.S. president will respond, and it could potentially lead to a full-scale confrontation between Iran and the United States. And this is something that President Trump has repeatedly said that he wants to avoid. He criticized former presidents George W. Bush, Obama, and Biden for getting the U.S. involved in perpetual wars in the region. So, and he has said that I'm the president of peace. And he certainly doesn't want to be the president who started yet another war in the region, especially with Iran, which is much larger than Iraq, has a much larger population, and it could not be as easy as Iraq. And we saw what happened in the Iraq case.
All right. Sina Azodi, stay with us. I'm going to bring in Abbas Aslani, who's joining us from Tehran. He's a senior research fellow at the Center for Middle East Strategic Studies. Thank you, Abbas, for being with us. Your thoughts about what's happened, and is there a scenario here in which Iran can respond to these U.S. attacks without escalating the situation further?
Well, I think a response from Iranian side seems certain,
It could be maybe 3 scenarios. One could be the limited reaction, depending on the size of the damage. But let's not forget that in addition to the attack to the nuclear facilities, this is U.S. direct entry into the war with Iran. So Iran had earlier warned that it will respond to this, action.
That's what we're waiting for.
But the second scenario could be a full-scale war.
We will
Iran
have
trying
all
to
right to do
engage in serious, let's say, attacks against U.S. interests as well as the Israeli ones. This could include a wide scope of targets, which Iran can reciprocate similar, targets in Israel by going after Israeli nuclear sites, as was stated earlier.
They are drafting the articles right now.
Allies of Iran to join this, conflict, and Iran has levers like in the Strait of Hormuz to close and to block the transit of energy in the region. This could have repercussions not just for the
I'm about to try to pretend like I know what this article of impeachment is going to say. It's going to say that President Trump went behind Congress' back without appropriating or using Congress to make these decisions. Therefore, we have to impeach him for national security purposes.
It will depend on both sides and the role that other third parties and countries can play in this regard.
Sina Azadi, let me ask you about what Abbas Aslani said there. He thinks that this could lead to a regional escalation. Is there a scenario where we could see Iran's allies in the region, the Yemen's Houthis, for example, who had until now, at least for the past 10 days, not been fully engaged anyway in the Israeli-Iranian conflict? Are we likely to see Iran's allies in the region now enter the fray?
Certainly, it is not 100%, but surely Iranians can ask them to start attacking potentially American interests, Israeli interests. But we also have to keep in mind that the Houthis signed their own ceasefire with the United States.
Exactly.
I don't know if the Houthis would be willing to jeopardize
They just said that they're ready to bomb all ships.
They could start attacking Israeli ships or any ships that goes towards is inbound for Israel or outbound. It really depends on the Houthis' thinking, but we also have to again keep in mind that Houthis are more independent from Iran than other regional friends that Iran has.
Gentlemen, stay with me, both of you, Harlan, Abbas Aslani and Sina Azodi. Stay with me. I'm going to bring in Harlan Ullman into the conversation to get the U.S. perspective on all of this. He's a political and military analyst, chairman of the Kilowan Group, and a senior advisor at the Atlantic Council, joining us from Washington, D.C. I wanted to get your thoughts first, Harlan, on President Trump's justification of these attacks on Iran. He said that the U.S. was at risk of an imminent attack from Iran. Do you believe that?
No. And I think what President Trump decided was that this was an optimum time. I think that the intelligence community was correct in that there's no evidence that Iran is moving to develop a weapon.
Right.
But it certainly has done things to move in that direction. And given what Israel has done in terms of disarming much of Iran, I think the president felt that having given warnings to Iran, now was the time to act. I think in his view, he believes that there's one deft strike who's going to be able to produce a peace agreement, or at least a negotiation. This is the way Donald Trump thinks. And I'm afraid that's not going to be the case. As I said earlier this evening, I'm afraid that this is going to be the beginning and not the end of these issues. And I can almost guarantee you tomorrow, Iran will present evidence that the Fordo installation was not badly damaged as the Americans think. And the press conference that will be given tomorrow morning, American time, with the Secretary of Defense and the Chairman of the Joint Chiefs,
supposedly Iran had
how
responded
much damage was
with
done, and that the Iranian
airstrikes.
program has been set back years, possibly. The fact of the matter is, I don't think anybody will really know the extent of the damage in the United States, but this leaves open the door to a great deal of potential escalation. And one of the areas of escalation that has not been mentioned is that Iran has a very powerful cyber capacity. And I would expect cyber attacks to be breaking out. They'll be done clandestinely and overtly. But the fact of the matter is they can do a huge amount of damage, and that's one area I would look to see Iran starting almost immediately.
Abbas Aslani in Tehran, let me ask you about that and also about the damage at these 3 sites that the U.S. attacked, Fordo, Isfahan, and the third one. It'll come back to me in a second. But were there any preparations that were made prior to Natanz, yes, prior to the U.S. intervention? Because there had been, of course, rumors all week long that the U.S. might get involved in the conflict and might help the Israelis attack Fordo, for example. Were there any plans made by the Iranian authorities to perhaps clear these sites ahead of any U.S. intervention?
Of course.
Well, yes, because this didn't, caught Iran by surprise, and that's why, a few days earlier, Iran was expecting such kind of action taking place from the U.S. side. So that's why they had some precautionary measures and arrangements, and they had, transferred those nuclear material in order to avoid radiation and contamination, specifically for those who are residing near to those facilities. And we have been hearing from Iranian officials that, those measures had been done in order to make sure that no damage will be done to those people living around, or in the vicinity of those nuclear facilities or close and nearby. And also there have been some, reports or comments from local officials. They have been saying that the damages, specifically in Fordo, have not been that significant as portrayed by U.S. President. They are saying that it has been, somehow damages in the surface or the entrance of the facility, which could be repairable. Fordo has been a, heavily protected and fortified underground nuclear facility. Penetrating to that facility could be, difficult. It may delay the progress and development in that facility, but comparing to that facility, Natanz and Isfahan could be, let's say, much more accessible. The amount and the extent of the damage to Natanz and Isfahan, I think, is being investigated. We have no, detailed information and precise one on those 2 nuclear facilities. But all in all, this may not end the nuclear industry in the country. This is what is being said by the Atomic Energy Organization in the country, as well as officials. They are saying that you cannot kill the knowledge, even by killing scientists or, bombing nuclear facilities. And this may, strengthen the resolve in the country in order to continue to develop the nuclear, program.
Sina Azodi, your thoughts about what Abbas Aslani was saying there? I mean, the Iranians would have...
News. Because this is all happening right now, and for some reason, something said that
escalate, and that we're not going to see just a one-off with this operation, that this might be a bigger U.S. intervention. Is that how you see things evolving as well within the next few days?
Well, yes, I agree. And unfortunately, the president has not left Iranians with much of a choice, a safe phasing ramp, because of the way he spoke to Iranians, because of the mere strike on the Iranian homeland by the United States. Iranians will be forced to respond, but as I discussed, there are 3 different options. Three main options that Iranians have, and absolutely, I think it has the capacity to escalate into a broader conflict in the region, which would drag the U.S. In another war. And this is something that the Prime Minister of Israel has always wanted to do with.
Harlan, dragging the U.S. into another war in the region is what President Trump said he was not going to do. What do you think led him to this decision today? Was it Israeli pressure? I mean, if we could describe it, pressure or Israeli influence, non-stop Israeli influence on him? What led him
it was pressure.
to basically go against what many in his party had not wanted? They didn't want to get involved in further wars in the region. What do you think it is that led him to make this decision today?
I think it's very straightforward.
Miriam
Nobody wanted Iran to have a nuclear weapon. The question was, how do you deal with that? Did you do that through diplomacy? And of course, Trump abrogated the Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action when he became president the first time. And it seems to me that's what put us on this course, because I think that the JCPOA would have worked, was working. Having said that, the president probably decided that this was an opportunity to use American power, and I think he really believed that by attacking Fordo and Natanz and Isfahan, he could really set the program back and then leave it up to the Israelis to finish off what needs to be done.
But the reason I asked that, I'm sorry to interrupt you, Harlan, is that it seems that his stance on Iran has constantly evolved. The goalposts kept moving. He wanted to give diplomacy a chance. There were indirect negotiations going on. He said no nuclear enrichment for weapons program, but then it changed. What led to the goalposts moving constantly?
You're making a mistake. Donald Trump has no goalposts. There's nothing by which you can measure him. And I believe that he felt that this was an opportunity right now to strike, that Iran had been weakened by Israel. He did not want Iran to get a nuclear weapon and felt, I can do it, and the attack will provide so much shock and awe that Iran will be forced to negotiate, and I'll win a Nobel Prize. I don't know about the Nobel Prize, but I do think he thought this would be sufficient, and that American power would be enough to deter any retaliation on the part of Iran. That's the bet he's taken. It's not a bet I would take. We'll see what's happening in the future, but my guess is it's not going to turn out as the president expected. I hope it does. But I think those chances are between slim and none, because Iran will do something, it will escalate, and we'll see how far that escalation goes.
Sina Azodi, your thoughts about what Harlan said there, that Donald Trump really had no goalposts and that diplomacy wasn't going to work because eventually what he wanted was to attack Iran. Do you share that view?
Well, I don't think that he really wanted to attack Iran. I think his instinct was to get a deal and potentially go for and claim that he deserved the Nobel Peace Prize. But I think that he was under pressure by the neocons.
Why would he get a Nobel Peace Prize?
And Prime Minister's supporters in the U.S. And I think at some point he lost his grip and control over the events, meaning that he tried to get a deal, but under the pressure of Prime Minister Netanyahu's friends in the U.S., I think he was forced to back down from the deal, and then to say that he solved the problem, he went back to using the military option. But what I do want to emphasize is that, look, you can destroy the facility, but once you have the capacity and industrial know-how of rebuilding those facilities, Iran can always reconstitute the program, which raises another question. Is the U.S. are the Americans going to attack Iran every 6 months, every year to prevent it from reconstituting its program? That's a question that I don't know the answer to. Will President Trump be willing to commit the United States to a far larger conflict in the region? These are the questions that we don't know the answer to.
Abbas Aslani, your thoughts about what we've heard there from both Harlan and Sina Azodi, and also, I guess, you being in Tehran, perhaps get a sense of how the Iranian public is perceiving this current conflict with Israel, and now also the Americans entering it, in light of the economic strain that they've been experiencing in recent years and the risks of this becoming now a wider regional war. How is the Iranian public perceiving all of this?
Well, it seems that this is not about an end game, but setting the stage and, paving the way for a new course. This will impact different calculations here in Tehran. When it comes to the nuclear program, this might impact Iran's cooperation with the IAEA, or let's say rethink its policies when it comes to the nuclear program. So far, we have no confirmation on that. What we should be expecting.
Forces in Iraq and other places came under attack. So we know for a fact, because we've been asking those questions, whether or not the United States has been preparing force protection for an Iranian retaliation.
They better have it.
And
if they
it
didn't
has
move
to be
all
said.
their fucking,
I don't know what kind of language is coming out of Tehran right now, but something like this and something even less than this has never gone unanswered.
Well, guys,
we heard this.
I think we are in World War III. So, if anything happens, any updates, I promise. Hold on, I think we got something. Hold on, I think we got action. We're gonna keep this live coverage going, and I'm trying to hold on. I want to see if the response happens tonight. When do you think Iran is going to respond? Tonight? Tomorrow? Next week? Are they going to keep us on edge? Or are they not going to respond at all? What do y'all think? Because there's a possibility that we see a regime change on the side that some people do not expect. All right. Is this... Oh, no. Nope, that's not their page. Those are fake pages. What is this? Alright, read that already. So, we don't have any updates yet. They're coming in slowly. The IDF has nothing to say. And, hold on. Let me see. Let's see what Trump has to say. I think Trump has been fairly quiet. Y'all. Elon's been quiet, too. Elon has been real quiet on this whole situation. Now, I don't have his Truth Social, but that's all he got is this American flag right here an hour ago. As if he just did something. That's Trump for you. As if he just did something. American flag posted. And he got his minions out here. Oh, hold on. He got his minions out here doing his work for him. They are out here tweeting like crazy. Starlink is the reason why some of us are getting shadow banned. Just to let y'all know that. Whoa, what's this? Iran news. Oh, no, that's from the fake page. We need some real pages. Real news from official pages. What a lineup. Yeah, okay. So, yeah, we're going to keep bringing you guys information as it comes through. It may be the calm before the storm. I don't know, but it's eerie quiet, you know.
Following breaking news in Iran, American bombers have struck 3, not 1, not 2, but 3 nuclear sites, major nuclear sites inside Iran. Those sites, Fordo, Isfahan, and Natanz. They're considered the heart of Iran's nuclear ambitions. Israel had tried to target them in the past, but a U.S. official tells CNN that the U.S. used not 1, not 2, but 6 B-2 bombers and 12 bunker buster bombs. And that was just at the Fordo site. Sources tell CNN that the U.S. told Iran through back-channel discussions that the strikes would be contained and no further strikes were planned, at least not yet. Here's the latest developments on this major breaking news that we're following. Breaking news in Iran. American bombers have
no more planned strikes as of right now. So we good. All right, Iran. That's what the America said. That's what America told Iran. Listen, we got this. We're done. We make sure it's contained. We ain't gonna have no nuclear waste go all over the place. We got this, and we're not gonna do anything else right now. Oh man. This is crazy. Urgent. Iran. Yep. 55 minutes ago, we will attack all American ships and warships.
كما جاء في بيانات سابقة.
You better get up out of there.
في رفض العدوان الصهيوني على إخواننا في غزة ولبنان وسوريا وأي بلد عربي أو إسلامي يتعرض للعدوان الصهيوني كما جاء في بيانات سابقة. إن المعركة مع العدو الإسرائيلي المعتدي على إيران مع ما يرتكبه قبل ذلك من إجرام ضد الشعب الفلسطيني وإبادة جماعية واعتداءات مستمرة على الشعبين اللبناني والسوري والعدوان على اليمن ثم اتجه لعدوان شامل ضد الجمهورية.
How kind would you give Yemen if they attack you? What? If Yemen attack you, as the response will likely be severe. The U.S. has historically retaliated with airstrikes as seen in March 2025, killing 31 people. Military. Why nobody talk about? Hold on. Let me ask Rock. At Grok. Hold on. Yep. Uh-oh. I changed my thing. Give me a second. I'm going to ask Grok a question. What happened to the 70 service men and women who invaded Yemen in 2013 or 23. Either 2000 was it 2023? We'll say 24. All right. So hold on, they messed me up. Sorry. So I just want to ask Croc, what happened to the 70? Y'all can't even see that. Now, I don't know if y'all heard about this, but during the beginning of October 7th, the Israeli and Gaza conflict, the Houthis was obviously supporting the Palestinian cause, right? And they were blocking ships from going through the port, and the America-backed Navy came to try to, assist those ships and push the Houthis back. Well, the Houthis was putting a hurting on these American vessels, hurting on them. And they were keeping Israeli cargo ships from docking at their main port. So Israel's economy was just tanking. It's still tanking now. So I believe a ground operation existed. It happened. And 70 servicemen, either 70 or 75 servicemen, all Westerners from America, Great Britain, Europe, they and Israelis, they all went to Yemen for some operation, and they all lost their lives. Yep, every last one of them. It was not reported. Nobody said anything about it, and I don't understand why. So I just asked Grok, what happened with that? What'd it do? Talk to me. Whatever happened to those 70 U.S. servicemen that... Hold on. I think we got a response from Grok. There's no evidence that 70 U.S. servicemen invaded Yemen in 2024 were killed. The U.S. operations in Yemen that year involved airstrikes and naval actions against the Houthis rebels. Not ground invasions. No credible sources include. See, they lying. Now could it have been 2023? The claim may stem from misinformation or confusion with the other events, such as civilian casualties from U.S. strikes reported in 2025. For accurate details, check. Nope. What about in 2023? Let's ask Grab. What about in? You gotta put his name. How about in 2023? Act stupid. You know what I'm talking about, Grab. So yes, that happened. I know they're gonna try to pretend like it didn't happen, which is fine by me. But I was there when it happened. I was sitting back like, damn, what the fuck? We lost 70 of them. I don't know how many were Americans, but it was 70, either 70 or 75. And yeah, it was not a big story, not a big enough story for me. Hold on, let's see if we got any breaking news. Any breaking news, because this is crazy. There's going to be news that come to us late, because they're not going to let us know the truth. So we're going to have to try to catch it as it comes.
The protections is worrisome. And finally, we have a Department of Homeland Security created in the wake of 9/11 and the horror that happened here, whose focus has been, as we've been reporting for a couple weeks now, has been on immigration. And so its cybersecurity, its counterterrorism efforts have been either eviscerated or being run by people who don't have a background in the kind of threats that we should be worried now. I know we've had a lot of military analysts on about the potential of success and a transformative nature of what this could be. I'm a little bit less optimistic because one, we don't know the transformative nature of this military attack yet, but I think we have to be eyes wide open about Iran being a superpower in the Arab world and its capacity to respond. One can say it's worth it, but it's a discussion we should be having.
So, but what I hear you saying, Julia, correct me if I'm wrong, the U.S. should preemptively take a bunch of steps right now, worried about a worst case scenario, Iranian terrorist attacks against various U.S. targets, either in the United States domestically or around the world.
Right. So one is what's our troop protection looking like right now? And we haven't seen anything publicly. Second, will the Department of Homeland Security move its massive focus on these ICE raids? Honestly, and this is not political. We know the rest of DHS has been eviscerated because of this focus by the Trump administration into cybersecurity. Its cybersecurity agency is basically on fumes right now, as well as counterterrorism, which is being run by people who are really not from the world of counterterrorism. Next is intelligence. We've had challenges with our allies. Donald Trump is suspicious of them. We know that there's a debate about what our own intelligence was telling us. What is our intelligence telling us, and are we going to act on it? All of those pieces are part of a strategy for what the secondary, the next phase responses could be. It could be.
What you mean, Donald Trump worried about what our allies are saying?
Begging to get to the negotiating table. That would be your best case scenario. I am, as you know, your worst case scenario person in terms of have we thought through what these second order impacts are. The military tactics tonight, brave soldiers doing a brave military doing something that the president commanded them to do successfully. We don't know the consequences of that yet. We don't know whether this was a historic strike or was this just something that's going to delay Iran for a while. But we do know that that planning for such a military action also requires a defensive posture by the attacking country. We are no longer a I guess an honest broker, right? I mean, people know that we support Israel. People in the Arab world and people in Europe know that we support Israel. We've taken a step tonight in terms of becoming the aggressor, so to speak, becoming the actor. That changes our capacity to move things around in terms of both our diplomacy, but our defensive action.
We got a little
this is not,
Twitter space.
None of us
Myron
on air today
Gaines,
know which
but
way
Dan
this is going to
Balzerian
go,
is in
but
it
it
as
is
well.
worth spending some
Let's hear what
time
these motherfuckers is
considering
talking
what
about on this
those
Twitter space.
consequences could be if this action was not as successful as we've been told tonight.
Well, the stakes are clearly enormous. Julia Kayam, excellent analysis. Thank you very, very much. I'm Wolf Blitzer in New York. Thanks very much for watching. Jim Sciutto picks up our breaking news coverage of the U.S. strike on Iran right after a quick break.
This is the breaking news. I'm Jim Sciutto in Washington. We are learning new details about the U.S. strike on 3 Iranian nuclear sites, what President Donald Trump is now calling, quote, a spectacular military success. U.S. B-2 bombers hit 2 of these.
Let's see what these bombs are talking about.
One thing is, we were hearing reports the last few days that J.D. Vance allegedly was against the bombing of Iran. Obviously, this goes against the fact that as soon as he got elected, he'd made statements about wanting to bomb Iran. And so it seems like what they're doing is they're putting these feelers out there to essentially make it so that he wins the 2028 election and he's separated from Trump's pro-war stance. He can then be elected based on allegedly being anti-war, and then he can again do the same thing over again. What's your thoughts on that? And then do jump in with whatever you're going to say, Myron.
Yeah, well, the thing is, I believe that J.D. Vance or so on his team leaked that intentionally to try to, put a fake image out there. The whole thing is, like, J.D. Vance, he's linked with Palantir. He's linked with people who want war. He's funded by Thiel, who wants war.
No.
He, as he said on tape, he wants to punch hard on the Iranians and the Houthis. So he's been all okay with types of war or bombing campaigns in the Middle East. He was saying that we have to bomb them harder in that region too in the past. So this leak, I believe it's just from his team trying to go and say, oh, he's anti-war. But, he was in the Situation Room. He was there, and he supports this. He said so on tape many times before. I've always been a critic of Vance. I think that he's someone who was put there because of Thiel, because of his connections to Silicon Valley, and because of a lot of lobbying from libertarians and people who are very big in data collection and big tech area. I think that it was an intentional leak from J.D. Vance to try to go and make his image look better, but we all can see through it clearly. I think that the play is for Vance to be in 2028, to continue Palantir's access to our data, to continue refining their models, to get more information about all of us, to use that to predict our behavior, to go and analyze what we're going to do, and to essentially get rid of dissidents, to go and make their influence less in the country, to go and crack down on it in some capacity, and to understand who is a higher risk of being a dissident in the future. So that's a large scale, I guess, larger view of what's going to happen in 2028 and beyond. But, in terms of Vance, he's 100% going to run for president in 2028. And I haven't really seen a Democrat that I think would have a good shot, aside maybe from, a Newsom, to go and beat him. I think the Vance is going to win in 2028 from the trajectory here. And, we're going to have more access for Palantir, and, we're going to have more of this war type of nonsense. But
Trump is going to get impeached during the midterms. Why would Vance
follow up with Myron? Yeah, the
why would he
whole
win?
thing is, people have alt tech, they have new platforms, new ideas, they have information, and they try censoring all the time. And it used to work because they didn't really have alt platforms or other ways of getting information, but the genie's out of the bottle here, and now people have plenty of access to all the information they could possibly need. And from all that, that's why they're pretty much saying that, Israel is wrong in this matter, and they're not supporting of it. So there's a fundamental difference between younger and older people, and the ADL is freaking out about that for a reason. So, it's looking pretty good on long term for dissidents and the growth of that. And despite all the lies and misinformation and disinformation from people claiming that it's like inauthentic bots. It's just not true. And they know that in their hearts. And give it some time, and you're going to have a very large segment of the population being just completely anti-Israel all across the board.
Yeah.
Appreciate that. Dan, thanks for coming back up. Appreciate you being on here.
I don't know why it's kicking me. It did that with another space as well. It seems to just kind of randomly kick me off.
Yeah, it does that to a few people on this platform. I don't know if it's because the numbers were so big or whatever, but like a lot of people have been complaining about being kicked out of the space and kicked out of speakers and listeners. So yeah, I think there's a significant issue.
They finally shadow banned me on Instagram, so I was getting like around 12 million views a story, about like 8 to 12 million, depending on what I post. And now I'm only getting like 3.5. And you can't search my name. So if you're not following me and you like type my name in, it won't even pop up.
There you go.
Well, I'm not surprised because they want to censor you stating the points you're stating, so I'm not surprised about that.
Well, yeah, who owns
still getting your
Instagram?
Percentage
What's
was
that?
in favor, but
Well, yeah,
again,
who owns
that's
Instagram?
just-
You know, it's Zuckerberg.
Oh yeah. No, of course. It just had
Mark
taken them a
owns
little
it.
while. I think they kind of like dedicated a lot of like people to my team, and like they would historically help me out a lot. And now it's kind of they basically told me I had to delete the interview with what was it, PBD. I told him to fuck off, and then got shadow banned.
Let me tell you this too. When it
Please shut up. Is he speaking now?
منطق ملتی اونهایی که با سیاست‌های این منطقه آشنا هستن میدانند که ورود آمریکا در این قضیه 100% به ضرر اوست. اونچه که او در این زمینه ضربه خواهد خورد به مراتب بیشتر است از اونچه که ایران ممکنه صدمه بخوره. صدمه آمریکا اگر ورود در این میدان بشه، ورود به نظام
possibility of nuclear contamination, something that
they're confirming that he's still alive, even though they hit his bunker. So
they said that there was a sort of preparation in this regard. Also, we've got this statement coming from the Atomic Energy Organization of the country coming out to confirm these 3 sites being targeted by the forces. Also, they said that it goes quite against international law and NPT, something Iran is a signatory of which, and also they have criticized IAEA for their indifference and quote-unquote even support of these strikes in a sense, and that is related to a recent adoption of a Board of Governor resolution of IAEA. For many Iranian political analysts, they are convinced that paved the way, specifically seeing the timing for these escalations to ramp up to an unprecedented level at the time being. Also, when you look at this statement, they are saying that these sites which were targeted were under full inspection of IAEA, and that is quite contradictory to law according to these statements. But still, we can rest assured that moves to escalate the situation into a next unprecedented level. Right now, we can say escalation is the name of the game that we see on the ground.
Okay, before I ask you about what the Iranian response might be, just to recap and reiterate about the damage assessment, what we know about the extent of the damage to the facilities that were hit by the USC's 3 facilities, Isfahan, Fordo, and Natanz. We heard that there was no sign of contamination and no danger for the people who live in the vicinity of these sites. Can you just confirm once again what the Iranian nuclear agency has said about the damage at the 3 sites?
Yeah, as I told you earlier, we've got the Center for Nuclear Safety coming out to say that there is no danger for people living nearby the areas targeted, including Fordo, Natanz, and Isfahan. Also, they said that right now we don't have any confirmation that there is a nuclear contamination. Also, there is this statement coming out from Iran's member of parliament, Qom's member of parliament, indeed, Qasem Ravanbakhsh, who said that the extent to which damage is out there to Fordo facilities is not that the American media and U.S. President Donald Trump is claiming. What is putting forth is that the damage is less than what the American side is putting forth. But indeed, the truth of the matter is that we have to wait for further investigations to be conducted to have a real assessment of what goes on there. As so far,
we are stuck in the middle of it as
taxpayers. Let me just ask you briefly, Tauheed, about how might Iran respond now prior to the U.S. strikes. Of course, the Iranians had threatened to respond if the U.S. was to get involved in the conflicts with Israel. What are the options on the table now for Iran?
America has military bases all the way in that area, in the Gulf. They are sitting ducks right now, according to Iran's leader. And they have the right to defend themselves. So what's going to end up happening, we might wake up and a lot of American soldiers, military men, may have been attacked by Iran. So I will keep y'all updated with this story as it unfolds. Please like, share, subscribe, and hit the notification bell. That way you can get an update when I go live again. I love y'all. I am out of here. Thanks for joining me. Peace. Cheers.